but you got to look at the party at the time. The party was much different back then than it is now. Now we're not only facing just an election, now you're seeing an unprecedented government overreach to where now you have government targeting private citizens, right? You have Trump taking on this corrupt administrative state that's turned against American citizens. It's not about Trump anymore. I hate to break that to everybody here, whether you're in the DeSantis or the Vivek boat, it doesn't matter. This is no longer about Trump. If they're going to come for him and his attorneys, right? Attorney-client privilege is dead in America. That is the one thing that people need to wake up and realize this week. And I talked to Jenna Ellis, who is still a friend of mine, even though she is in the DeSantis camp. That doesn't matter to me, right? These are good people, and they are being persecuted for being legal representation to a former president. That is the big thing on highlight for me in this election. And if anybody's going to stop it, in my mind, it is Trump, because he has a amount of righteous indignation inside of him that now it is retribution. He knows if he gets in 4 years and he's done. Righteous indignation against the political enemies who persecuted him, who've ruined this country. Because if they're doing it now, let me say this. I agree with Charlie Kirk on one thing here that he said recently in an op-ed, right? He said, if they are coming after us for the meantime, we should go after them, right? It's fair. And I agree with that, because the fabric of this nation is on a thread right now. It's on a thread. And if anyone's going to take it back and really be the one to fight it, I can't imagine any other better person than Donald J. Trump. I can't.
And just,
Ryan, let me ask you,
guys,
right now.
let me just before I give it to
Go ahead.
Sorry, Justin, just before I give it. Guys, just in the comment section, bottom right-hand side, this is actually a huge question, and people are split. And the question is this: should Donald Trump have joined the debate? Should he have joined the GOP debate, or do you think he did the right thing interviewing with Tucker Carlson? I actually want to hear what you got to say, but also not just hear, but see the reasoning. Why do you think it should be? Why do you think he should have debated? And why don't you think he should? That'd be brilliant. Justin, sorry, you had a question. Go ahead.
That's right. So, Ryan, it seems there's a
little
contradiction, though. I wanted to ask you real quick. Is like you started out saying that it's not about Trump, but then you ended saying it's all about him seeking retribution. And again, I know it's not necessary. This is a broader picture, and almost all conservatives agree that there is some real bad stuff that has happened here. I mean, seeing Jenna Ellis up there, seeing even Rudy just makes me shudder. I'm just like, what is going on? This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not my mugshot up there. It's his mugshot. Isn't there a case to be made that there's, at some point he's going to have to give up the ghost because there's so much baggage here. You said it's not about Trump, but then you said it's all about him seeking retribution. Which is it?
I mean, I think it's a matter of both, because he was in office, right? And all of this stuff is occurring now, right? And they don't like him. You guys know the timeline of this. I don't have to go through from 2016. He is a threat to many people in government, the bureaucracy. When I worked there in D.C., I was always told, I have a good friend who worked as assistant AG. I lived with his son. He was in my fraternity. And this guy would always talk about the fact that there are people in there who have been there for 20 plus years who do not like Donald Trump, and they will do anything they can to sideline Donald Trump. And that is verbatim quote. And so I knew about this. This was a timeline from 2016 all the way up to 2020. And now we're seeing the effects of it. We saw the censorship on social media after J6. We saw what the DOJ did, raiding the Mar-a-Lago. We saw all of these things. And it wasn't because of necessarily of the man. It was because of the machine that was created because of what he did. He came in as an outsider and did so many things that were different. I think it's a mix, right? I think it's a mix, Justin. I don't think it's on one thing or the other. And, when I look at this, to answer your question as well, Mario, when you look at the Tucker debate, people know Trump. They already expect Trump to do Trump. Right. You're going to get the mean tweets. You're going to get Trump. Right. I think he's going to come into this a lot different than he did before, because, again, an outsider does not understand the machine that you walk into when you walk into Washington, D.C. I didn't either, as a 21-year-old coming into D.C., doing stuff at the White House, doing stuff at the GOP. I didn't understand the system. I learned real quick, though, who my friends and my enemies were very quickly. And Trump did, too. And so this is, and it's different when you're president, right? Jimmy Carter dealt with the same things. Jimmy Carter was a terrible president. But he came in at a time where you weren't doing anything if you weren't an insider. And he dealt with those problems, which is why he probably was a terrible president. He couldn't get anything done. So I look at this Tucker debate. I look at all this stuff. Trump is tried and proven. He's leading near 60% plus. People know what to expect of him. So this debate is going to be, or not debate, this sit down with Tucker is going to be a perfect opportunity for him to answer some questions, in sort of a more calm situation where it's not just, the rambunctiousness of a debate, and be able to answer these things for the American people because they already know what to expect from him. They already understand Trump. They understand the machine. So, it's much different when you look at 2020 with Joe Biden. When he didn't want to debate, he was the nominee, right? Trump was the president. DeSantis has never been president. At the time in 2020, Biden was never president. So I think the standard is a little bit different now, a little bit different. So that's kind of how I look at it personally.
Are you saying Trump needs a safe space? Trump needs a safe space, Ryan?
So one second.
Trump doesn't need a safe space. You guys have seen Trump on a debate stage. You've seen how he can handle the debate stage. Honestly, if he were up here tonight, it would be the same way he was in 2016. I just had dinner with the guy.
Ryan, I've got a question for you. Do you think, like Chris Christie, he's on there just to basically do the personal jobs at Trump? So he kind of, because the other ones are going to make it look like they're holier than thou. They're not going to do it. And then Chris Christie's there to do the personal jobs. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Chris Christie, the only thing he can devour is a meatball sub and a cannoli. That's the only reason why he's up there. That's it. The only reason why he's up there is to be a jab at Trump. That's why he put him up there. I would have much rather seen Larry Elder up there than Chris Christie because I think Larry Elder is a very formidable candidate. I think he's a great guy. That's how I look at this, and I come in a comical, but yeah, he's 100% up there to jab Trump. That's it. He thinks he can take on Trump and all that. I'd pay to watch a debate between the two of them. I would. I'd pay to watch a debate.
Let me go to Joseph. Joseph, I'd like to hear your thoughts because I've not actually heard your thoughts on this. What do you think? What are you most interested in, the GOP debate or the Tucker Carlson Donald Trump interview?
Well, first of all, I just answered your question. Should Trump be on the debate stage? And I think that Trump is absolutely right, that he doesn't really need to be here. And for the reasons that you cited, like look at his poll numbers, he's absolutely dominating. So from my perspective, I'm not even sure why we have debates at all. Trump has this locked up. I'm sure many of us here have been to Trump rallies. If you go there, you have people camped overnight to see Trump. You have people driving hours to see Trump. He shows up, he draws crowds of tens of thousands of people. He is like a legit hero. So for him, of course, it's going to be a slam dunk. In fact, I remember back in 2016, he made a joke that he could go down on Fifth Avenue, he could shoot someone and he wouldn't lose any voters, and he's probably not wrong. So this is already done for. He will be the nominee. I think of today's debate as more about, who might be a good VP. And for some of these people who are very young, like Vivek and like Governor DeSantis, these people have a bright future in the years after Trump. They're very young. So I think of this as a stage for them to build up their own publicity, to build their brand, and to potentially advertise to the nation why they could be a big VP. It's a way to raise their profile. So that's what I'd be looking for, to see just how they go about doing this. And, there are also other people there who have no shot, who are perhaps have history with Trump. We were just talking about Governor Chris Christie, as I recall. He was very loyal to Trump throughout the 2016 election and probably didn't end up with the job in administration that he would have liked. So I don't know what the relationship is. And he hasn't been saying very nice things. Oh, and one thing, Trump is definitely going to come back to X. He's running for president. This is the biggest platform in the world. He has to come back if he wants to win.
I think.
Hey, let's go to Max for a second here.
I think Justin and Ryan, I think one of you two said it. I think it's a prime time to start. He's got his Tucker Carlson interview starting in 2 minutes. You've got the GOP debate happening in 7 minutes. I think it's a prime time to start Xing. But Max, I do want to go to you.
Salman, just to update you that all of the candidates have now come on the podium. So it's going to start imminently. I'll just interject when it does start.
Thank you for the breaking news, and it will be streamed. Yeah. Go ahead, Max. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, in 2016 or 2015, I should say, Donald Trump took the world by storm. He was the absolute center of attention. He dominated every discussion that was happening in the debate. And, very clear at this point that he's lost a step. And so we talk about like, what does he need to prove? Well, in 2020, he proved that he lost to Joe Biden. And then since then, he's proven that he's endorsed a lot of candidates who really, unfortunately, underperformed. And, frankly, the reason we don't have the Senate right now. What does he need to prove? He needs to prove that he can, address what happened in his campaign. He can address, like, why did you lose? And saying it was just fraud, like, okay. But so he has plenty of questions to answer. Is he a viable candidate? In 2020, he was not. In 2022, he was not. And so is he a viable candidate in 2024? Can he answer for the issues that plague his administration? It does us no good to just pretend that the years 2017, 2018, 2019 happened, and the year 2020 simply did not happen. And that is what I hear all the time. I say, try to recapture the magic of 2016. Remember how good the economy was good until 2019. So he does need to prove it. A few minutes it's disappointing.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'll let you wrap up just because we've got a few minutes.
It's disappointing. Yeah, it's disappointing that Fox has banned President Trump. This is a guy that the world deserves to hear from regarding his record and his plans for the future.
Prodigal, I know you've got the GOP debate on every single TV screen in your house, so go ahead, bro. You're looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's always fun to watch the junior varsity team play it out. I mean, it's a bunch of pretenders, and I plan on watching Tucker. I'll get the highlights of the debate later, but let's be real. The problem with the DeSantis cap is that they always say they're going to combat corruption, but then they conveniently leave facts outside of the story. That the FBI and DOJ had already hatched an illegal investigation with foreign intelligence. That when the special prosecutor, I didn't interrupt you for a reason.
This isn't about the debate.
All right, go ahead, Prodigal.
Yeah, anyway, I'll end with this. He lost by a handful of votes where they had multiple NGOs and get out the vote operations that aren't there. Mind the Gap is gone. There's a bigger infrastructure being built. And for them to talk about, Biden only won because it was the promise of normality. We aren't at normality. Inflation's at record highs. We're marching towards World War III. They say the economy's booming. Where? Real estate volume's dead, big tech's bleeding, etc. So the reality of the matter is a lot of people are tired. And
1 second, guys, because we've got minimum time, so I'm just going to get everybody a chance to speak. Evie, what's your thoughts on this? You watching the Tucker debate? The Tucker interview or the GOP debate?
I want to watch the GOP debate, but I want to say that I'm very upset that Trump is not on the debate today, and it's not because he's doing so well and he shouldn't be there. Because he's not just sabotaging the debate, he's sabotaging the process. There's a reason we have debates in primaries. He should have been there. He has absolutely nothing to fear, nothing to be scared of. He could have done an amazing job, and is the same thought process that he stays on truth the whole time, and it doesn't come on X to communicate with his followers, which I think it's really something he should be doing, especially right now that he's running for office again. And just to go back very quick on what Ryan was saying before, that Trump is the only person that can do things right this time around. But honestly, as much as I love Trump, I don't think he's going to get it done. I think that the deep state is out there getting him, getting his attorneys, and getting going after everybody else.
The Trump interview's already started. He's already got 3 million impressions in 2 minutes. It's crazy. Jack, what's your thoughts about what we asked?
Just a countdown. We're 3 minutes away from the debate starting.
3 minutes. Love to hear Jack's thoughts within these 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, all right. So here we go. Doing these things late is oftentimes a problem because clearly Chris has been drinking since at least 5 o'clock. Now, Nick's point is that the candidate debates tonight.
On topic, buddy. I'm not drinking anything. All right. I'm sorry your
candidate is cheers to you. Hey, cheers to you. Cheers to you. Cheers to you. All right. So anyways, he is so what we have here is we have a bunch of people trying to run for second place with hopes that the special prosecutor will push Trump out. I mean, that is what's happening here. But we all know that the only person that could get it done, like what Ryan was saying, to actually fight back, push back. I mean, he's already been in the office. He already knows, how to navigate the issues that we face, is going to be President Donald Trump. I mean, that is the only way forward here. And for people to say that he should be on a debate stage, no, because it's going to turn into a let's slam Trump and have him answer to questions that the left is propped up. So I think it would be a waste of everyone's time, his time. Why wouldn't he go on Tucker and tell his side of the story without having a bunch of people trying to bid to be his vice president attacking him? I mean, so I fully support his decision, and I thought it was a very intelligent decision. And I think that going to the debate would have been foolish on his part. And I really wish everyone, Vivek, man, he's got a future. I'm very impressed with him. DeSantis as well. I liked him so much. I moved into his state. So let's see what they have to offer. Scott is very, very likable. If you notice, President Trump hasn't said not a thing about him. So that might tell you a little something there. That's my thoughts.
Trump needs a
And
safe
already
space.
the Trump interview, it's only been 5 minutes, and it's already at almost 11 million views. So
they're doing a drone shot right now on Fox News through the.
Okay, guys, I think we're going to go live.
Okay.
What a stirring way to begin the first primary debate of this 2024 election season. The candidates are on the stage. Martha and Brett are going to start the questioning in our drone. Yeah. Because I can see almost makes you feel like play ball, right, Harold? I mean, let's go.
We've got 36 seconds. You want me to let this run?
The people here in Milwaukee have been fantastic, and they are giving us their best tonight. 4,000 strong inside, and you're about to see the first event of the political season. Where we end up in November of 2024 is anyone's guess, but tonight is the first step in that direction. Enjoy it, America. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Brett and Martha, take it from here. Good night.
Some call it the heartland. Others flyover country. But for the 2024 presidential hopefuls, the Midwest is the place to land. Here, there is one battleground that may be harder to win than ever. Wisconsin. A state known for its beer and cheese, gridiron and grit, and also its razor-thin elections. In 2016, Republicans
massive voter fraud in Green Bay.
The first time back to blue by 2020. That election came during an unprecedented.
Sorry, guys, they seem to be doing some sort of an introduction there. Do you want me to just wait and see until the questions start?
I'm already getting bored. Put Trump on, please, while we're waiting.
Listen, Fox News is not a good.
Tucker's throwing him a bunch of softballs right
It's
now.
debate night, but we're not
Fox News is not an honest broker, right? In the depositions that came up, what Paul Ryan wanted to do.
Mr. President, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Why are you at the Fox News debate tonight in Milwaukee?
Well, you know, a lot of people have been asking me that.
Are they not fair to Trump? Or are they not? Do they not kiss his butt enough?
No, I don't know. Maricopa County is going pretty well, right, Chris? I mean, that's the problem with DeSantis people. They can't admit reality to what the base cares about. I guess election integrity is not an issue for you. We still care about
election integrity is not an issue. Hey, we won a 20-point route here in Florida thanks to Ron DeSantis.
And it's showing on the national stage. The JV was good. You're on the national stage, brother. How many resets have you had now? Another reset?
Well, how much success has Trump had? Trump lost to a guy
he's
with a guy
he's outraised DeSantis over almost 6 times. He has 480,000 donors compared to 65,000. All of DeSantis donors are the same corporate money that sold everybody out. He seems to be gathering all the people who Trump discarded or betrayed him. So that's your guy. God bless.
And all the people Trump threw under the bus, you mean? And now
Guys,
Trump is too afraid to go on Fox News. He's too afraid to
Listen,
guys,
just like Ukraine, you're going to turn it around.
The debate has started.
Give it some more time. You're going to turn it around.
Okay, the debate has started.
To be here.
Listen, I don't know what we're arguing about. DeSantis is a great governor.
I agree with that. He's going to make a great president, too.
Shall I go? Yeah.
This is the very same stage on which the Republican choice for president will accept the party's nomination next summer. The 8 contenders are positioned by the order they sit in the polls, with the highest polling candidates in the middle standing center stage. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
It's debate night, but we're not in Milwaukee.
Mr. President, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Why aren't you at the Fox News debate?
Former Vice President Mike. You get 30 seconds to respond. And when the time runs out, we all will hear this. Very pleasant.
So tonight, these candidates have a big opportunity to break out of the pack and to explain why they are best prepared to be the Republican choice for president at a time when the likely Democrat nominee, President Joe Biden, is working to convince the country that with Bidenomics, things are looking up.
So you call my plan Bidenomics. I'm not sure they meant it in a totally complimentary way at the time. But guess what? It's working.
But is it? More than 65% of Americans say the country is headed in the wrong direction. And here's the reality for some voters we talked to here in Wisconsin this week.
We have noticed a dramatic increase in prices at the grocery store just across the board.
Yes, food is high. A lot of people out here homeless because they can't buy food.
It's tough when you got mortgage rates at 78% versus 2 to 3 because you can't afford a house.
Of this country.
Inflation
Washington, D.C.
I'm going to take over here, Kelly.
200 miles north of Richmond.
There's rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows it all. Just wanna have total control. Wanna know what you think, wanna know what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do. 'Cause your dollar ain't shit, and it's taxed to no end. Cause the rich man, cause the rich man.
So, Governor DeSantis, why is this song striking such a nerve in this country right now? What do you think it means?
Our country is in decline. This decline is not inevitable. It's a choice. We need to send Joe Biden back to his basement and reverse American decline. And it starts with understanding we must reverse Bidenomics so that middle-class families have a chance to succeed again. We cannot succeed as a country if you are working hard and you can't afford groceries, a car, or a new home, while Hunter Biden can make hundreds of thousands of dollars on lousy paintings. That is wrong. We also cannot succeed when the Congress spends trillions and trillions of dollars. Those rich men north of Richmond have put us in this situation. And finally, we need to lower your gas prices. We're going to open up all energy production. We will be energy dominant again in this country. I showed it could be done in the state of Florida. I pledge to you as your president, we will get the job done, and I will not let you down.
Governor DeSantis, thank you. Governor Christie, do you agree with Governor DeSantis just said there? And why would you be better on the economy than him?
Well, look, I do agree predominantly with what Governor DeSantis just laid out. I think that if you asked every one of us up here, that we would agree predominantly with what he just laid out. Here's the difference. The difference is that we're going to have to work and make sure that we sell these ideas and be able to put ourselves in a position where we get a majority of the vote, not only by winning the Congress and the Senate in 24, but also by having someone who's had the experience of doing it. Now, I was elected as a conservative Republican in a blue state with 61% of the vote, with a Democratic legislature against me the entire time. And we still, through hard, strong decision-making, brought them around to our point of view. We cut taxes in New Jersey. We cut debt in New Jersey. We made sure that each and every time we were confronted with bad Democratic ideas, we stood and stopped them. And when there were good ideas, we brought people together to make progress going forward. Truth and accountability are the things we need to do to fight waste. And I'd say the last thing is this, Brett. We cannot sit by any longer and allow the kind of spending that's going on in Washington, because every dollar they spend is a dollar that these people are not allowed to spend on their children and their grandchildren. It's robbing our country, and it's wrong.
Well, Governor, let me just follow up very quickly. New Jersey, when you were governor, had the second lowest credit rating in the nation after Illinois. and it was downgraded 11 times.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what happens when you inherit a blue state that has done that. But when you look at what we did on debt, Brett, in that state, we cut debt in that state, debt that had been left to us by 3 Democratic gubernatorial predecessors of mine who ran up that debt tremendously. And what you also saw us do was to cut the unemployment rate in half. It was over 10% when I became governor in 2010. What we also did was cut pension payments to public employees to make sure that taxpayers were not being soaked by a public employee union system that was killing the taxpayer.
Thank you, Governor.
He rated it.
Governor Scott, Tim Scott, Senator Scott, excuse me. The song also goes after welfare programs. As a senator, now President Biden argued for freezing federal spending, this was back in the 80s, and dealing with sacred cows. He does not talk about that anymore. You have been a senator, though, for 10 years. So what have you done to rein in the increasing size of government?
Well, thank you for the question. Over the last several years, I've had an opportunity to vote against spending package after spending package after spending package. What we also need to understand is that Joe Biden's Bidenomics has led to the loss of $10,000 of spending power for the average family. When you see 16% inflation, your gas is up 40%, your food is up 20%, your electricity is up 20%. We can stop that by turning the spigot off at Washington, sending the money back to the states, and allowing the decisions to be made at their own houses. I helped write the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017. We cut taxes for a single mom like the one that raised me by 70%, for dual households by 60%, returning to the average family $4,000. If you don't send it to Washington, we can't spend it. That's good news for the American people.
Okay, but just to follow up, you did, during the Trump administration, you approved 4.4 trillion, 4.1 trillion, 1.7 trillion over the course of that administration. That's a lot of money.
There's no doubt that during the Trump administration, when we were dealing with the COVID virus, we spent more money. But here's what happened at the end of our time in the majority. We had low unemployment, record low unemployment, 3.5% for the majority of the population, 70-year low for women. African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians had an all-time low, but our inflation was at 2%. Under Joe Biden, we've seen the exact opposite. We've seen inflation explode, which led to 12 Federal Reserve increases that's devastating home buyers today.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you're listening to these answers.
If I may,
hold on one second.
We're going to, so I don't know if I get a chance to respond.
He didn't mention you specifically, but we'll be with you in a second, Mr. Vice President. Mr. Ramaswamy, listening to all of this, why should voters choose you over more experienced politicians on this stage? You're basically, a blank slate for people. You're 38 years old. You've said that you only voted in 2 presidential elections before this moment, this political race.
So first, let me just address a question that is on everybody's mind at home tonight. Who the heck is this skinny guy with a funny last name, and what the heck is he doing in the middle of this debate stage? I'll tell you, I'm not a politician, Brett. You're right about that. I'm an entrepreneur. My parents came to this country with no money 40 years ago. I have gone on to found multi-billion-dollar companies. I did it while marrying my wife, Apurva, raising our 2 sons, following our faith in God. That is the American dream. And I am genuinely worried that that American dream will not exist for our 2 sons and their generation unless we do something about it. And I do think Brett is going to take an outsider. Because for a long time, we have professional politicians in the Republican Party who have been running from something. Now is our moment to start running to something, to our vision of what it means to be an American today. If you have a broken car, you don't turn over the keys to the people who broke it again. You hand it over to a new generation to actually fix the problem. That's why I'm in this race, and we're just getting warmed up.
All right, to you, Governor Haley. So why are you better positioned to turn around this economy that we've heard all of these voters talking about tonight than Mr. Ramaswamy, who is a successful entrepreneur nationally right now? He's beating you in the polls.
Well, I don't care about polls. What I care about the fact is that no one is telling the American people the truth. The truth is that Biden didn't do this to us. Our Republicans did this to us too. When they passed that $2.2 trillion COVID stimulus bill, They left us with 90 million people on Medicaid, 42 million people on food stamps. No one has told you how to fix it. I'll tell you how to fix it. They need to stop the spending. They need to stop the borrowing. They need to eliminate the earmarks that the Republicans brought back in. And they need to make sure they understand these are taxpayer dollars. It's not their dollars. And while they're all saying this, you have Ron DeSantis, you've got Tim Scott, you've got Mike Pence. They all voted to raise the debt. And Donald Trump added $8 trillion to our debt. And our kids are never going to forgive us for this. And so at the end of the day, you look at the 2024 budget, Republicans asked for $7.4 billion in earmarks. Democrats asked for $2.8 billion. So you tell me who are the big spenders. I think it's time for an accountant in the White House.
Vice President Pence. You were mentioned there. 54% of voters say the cost of groceries is a, quote, major problem for them.
Right.
You blame the Biden administration spending for that increase. But as vice president, your administration spent more than any prior, $7.8 trillion added to the national debt, $3.5 trillion of that before COVID. So does that mean that you're part of the spending problem?
Well, first off, thanks for the question. Thanks for letting me respond to a reference to our administration's record. I'm incredibly proud of the record of the Trump-Pence administration. I mean, in 4 short years, we rebuilt our military. We revived our economy. We unleashed American energy. And we appointed 3 conservatives to the Supreme Court that gave the American people a new beginning for the right to life. Now, Martha, you asked earlier, who's the most best prepared for this job? And I must tell you, with all due respect to all of my friends on the stage, and even to one that's probably looking on, I think unquestionably I am the best prepared, the most tested, the most qualified and proven conservative in this race. I was a leader in the Congress of the United States. I led Indiana where we balanced budgets and had a AAA bond rating when I was governor. And as vice president of the United States, we spent funding to backfill on the military cuts of the Obama administration. And then we were there in the worst pandemic in 100 years. All that being said, I was the first person in this race to say that we've got to deal with the long-term national debt issues. You got people on this stage that won't even talk about issues like Social Security and Medicare. I mean, Vivek, you recently said a president can't do everything. Well, I got news for you, Vivek. I've been in the hallway. I've been in the West Wing. A president of the United States has to confront every crisis facing America. I will put our nation back on the path to growth and prosperity and restore fiscal responsibility, just as I did in Congress and as governor,
Mr. Vice President,
and when I was vice president.
But yeah, I mean,
hold on.
Yeah,
you were named earlier. I'm going to give Vivek first.
We'll get to both.
Yeah, this isn't that complicated, guys. Unlock American energy. Drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear. Put people back to work by no longer paying them more to stay at home. Reform the U.S. Fed, stabilize the U.S. dollar, and go to war. The only war that I will declare as U.S. president will be the war on the federal administrative state that is the source of those toxic regulations acting like a wet blanket on the economy. So I'm not sure I exactly understood Mike Pence's comment, but I'll let you all parse that out. For me, it's pretty simple. That's something a U.S. president can do with focus, and I'll deliver on it.
Well, let me explain it to you. Vivek, if I can. I'll go slower this time.
I sometimes struggle with the reading comprehension.
Look, I was a House conservative leader before it was cool. I actually pushed a Deficit Reduction Act. That was the last time we actually reduced the national debt in the United States when I was the leader of House conservatives. I balanced budgets and cut taxes when I was governor. I mean, look, Joe Biden has weakened this country at home and abroad. Now is not the time for on-the-job training. We don't need to bring in a rookie. We don't need to bring in people without experience. We need to bring
Hold on, it's 30 seconds when you have a rebuttal, okay? And you are up, Governor DeSantis.
So here's the thing. Why are we in this mess? Part of it, and a major reason, is because how this federal government handled COVID-19 by locking down this economy. It was a mistake. It should have never happened. And in Florida, we led the country out of lockdown. We kept our state free and open. And I can tell you this, as your president, I will never let the deep state bureaucrats lock you down, you don't take somebody like Fauci and coddle him. You bring Fauci in, you sit him down, and you say, Anthony, you are fired.
Yeah.
You know what? We're going to bring in.
I just want to respond to Mike for 1 second because he invoked me back. Listen, now that everybody's gotten their memorized, pre-prepared slogans out of the way, we can actually have a real discussion now. The reality and the fact of the matter is...
Was that one of yours?
Not really, Mike, actually. We're just going to have some fun tonight. And the reality is, you have a bunch of people, professional politicians, super PAC puppets, following slogans handed over to them by their 400-page super PACs last week. The real choice we face in this primary is this. Do you want a super PAC puppet, or do you want a patriot who speaks the truth? Do you want incremental reform, which is what you're hearing about, or do you want revolution?
Okay.
And I stand on the side of the American revolution.
We're going to take control back here.
We need everyone to have a moment on the economy.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Can I address the
There are
COVID
two people
issues
who
the
have
governor
not,
brought up?
we're going to
No.
get back to that. We are. There are two people who we have not heard from yet. So let's hear from Governor Burgum and then from Governor Hutchinson on the economy, sir.
Well, great. Thank you, Martha. And of course, I'm from a town of 300 people. It's a big deal to make it on this stage with all these folks. But when they were all wishing me well, and I think I took them a little too literally when they said, go to Milwaukee and break a leg. So, but I do want to say on this, we're missing something. We can't just talk about the Biden economy because the economy, energy, and national security are all tied together. Of course, we're paying too much for our energy in our state, in our country right now. But part of the reason why is because of the Biden policies on energy. We've got a plan right now, the $1.2 trillion of Green New Deal spending buried in the Inflation Creation Act is something that is just subsidizing China. If we're going to stop buying oil from the Middle East and start buying batteries from China, we're just trading OPEC for Sinopec. And then belatedly, the Biden administration says, no, we're going to put sanctions on Russian oil. Well, we put sanctions on Russian oil. Well, then it's 20% off. Who's buying it? China. So if you buy a battery in this country, you buy a solar panel, it's being produced in a plant in China powered by coal, or it's being powered by oil and gas at 20% off. And every farmer in this country would like to buy diesel at 20% off, just like they're buying it in China.
Governor Hutchinson, quickly.
Thank you, Brad. Delighted to be here tonight. And let me just tell you that I'm a pro-life governor from a conservative state that have a conservative record in which I lowered taxes in Arkansas as governor. I created a $2 billion surplus that I passed over to my successor, and I made sure that we shrunk the size of government. We have 14% fewer state employees in Arkansas after I left government than when I took over as governor 8 years ago. I tell that because that's what we need in Washington, D.C. We need somebody who can actually constrain the growth of the federal government, that can actually reduce the size, and I've pledged to reduce by 10% our federal non-defense workforce. That's a specific pledge to make that attacks the administrative state. And let me applaud some of the business partners that are here that have had success in business. But let me tell you, I've been a federal prosecutor. I've served our country in terms of being head of the DEA, in Homeland Security, in times of crisis. And while I think that that's experience that is important for the future of our country, to be the president of the United States that can lead with positive solutions and be held accountable.
Thank you. We have a lot of topics to get to, and I promise we're going to get to everyone if we play within the rules. Okay, next topic. More than 1,000 people are still unaccounted for in Maui after the deadliest U.S. wildfire in more than a century. Hawaii's governor and White House officials said that climate change amplified the cost of human error.
And a tropical storm hit California for the first time in 84 years. The ocean hit 101 degrees off the coast of Florida. And in the last month, the heat wave in the Southwest broke records nearly 50 years old.
So Alexander Diaz from Young America's Foundation has a question for you.
Polls consistently show that young people's #1 issue is climate change. How will you, as both President of the United States and leader of the Republican Party, calm their fears that the Republican Party doesn't care about climate change?
So we want to start on this with a show of hands. do you believe in human behavior is causing climate change? Raise your hand if you do.
Well, look, we're
President of
not
the
school
United
children.
States
Let's
and
have
leader
the
of the
debate.
Republican
I mean, I'm
Party
happy to take
calm
it
their
to
fears
start.
that the Republican
So do you want to raise your hand?
I don't think that's the way to do. So let me just say to Alexander this. First of all, one of the reasons our country's decline is because of the way the corporate media treats Republicans versus Democrats. Biden was on the beach while those people were suffering. He was asked about it. He said, no comment. Are you kidding me? As somebody that's handled disasters in Florida, you got to be activated. You got to be there. You got to be present. You got to be helping people who are doing this. And here's the deal.
Let's just answer the question.
So is that a yes? Or is that a yes? Is that a hand raise?
You do not.
I think it was a hand raise for him, and it's my hands are in my pockets.
No,
because
I
the
didn't
climate
raise
change
it. I
agenda
didn't
is a
raise a
hoax. Let us be honest as Republicans. I'm the only person on the stage who isn't bought and paid for, so I can say this. The climate change agenda is a hoax. The climate change agenda is a hoax. And we have to declare independence. And the reality is, the anti-carbon agenda is the wet blanket on our economy. And so the reality is more people are dying of bad climate change policies than they are of actual climate
Governor
change.
Haley, are you bought and paid for?
Hold on.
Listen.
No,
Wait, hold on.
I've had enough. I've had enough already tonight of a guy who sounds like ChatGPT standing up here. And the last person in one of these debates, Brett, who stood in the middle of the stage and said, what's a skinny guy with an odd last name doing up here, was Barack Obama. And I'm afraid we're dealing with the same type of amateur standing on stage tonight.
Yeah.
Give me a hug just like you did to Obama.
Same type of amateur.
And you help elect me just like you did to Obama, too. Give me that
The same type of amateur.
Hold on. Governor Haley, would you like to respond? Are you
So
bought
Brett,
and paid
what I
for?
would like to say is the fact that I think this is exactly why Margaret Thatcher said, if you want something said, ask a man. If you want something done, ask a woman. First of all, we do care about clean air, clean water. We want to see that taken care of, but there's a right way to do it. And the right way to do it is, first of all, yes, is climate change real? Yes, it is. But if you want to go and really change the environment, then we need to start telling China and India that they have to lower their emissions. That's where our problem is. And these green subsidies that Biden has put in, all he's done is help China, because he doesn't understand all these electric vehicles that he's done, what that does. Half of the batteries for electric vehicles are made in China. And so that's not helping the environment. You're putting money in China's pocket, and Biden did that. So first of all, I think we need to acknowledge the truth, which is these subsidies are not working. We also need to take on the international world and say, okay, India and China, you've got to stop polluting. And that's when we'll start to deal with
Senator
climate
Scott, are
change.
you bought and paid for?
Absolutely.
Are you bought and paid for?
I'm sorry.
Are you bought and paid for?
Absolutely not. I mean, here's what the American people deserve: is a debate about the issues that affect their lives. Going back and forth being childish is not helpful to the American people to decide on the next leader of our country. Number one, wait a second. Number two, as a kid who grew up in a single parent household mired in poverty, I wondered, was the American dream real for kids who were devastated by poverty, devastated by the challenges of life? I came to the conclusion that America can do for anyone what she's done for me if we focus on restoring hope, creating opportunities, and protecting America. If we want the environment to be better, and we all do, the best thing to do is to bring our jobs home from China. If we create 10 million new jobs in my Made in America plan, we will have a better economy and a better environment. Let me tell you why I say that, Brett. America,
Do it quickly.
America has cut. I'm a Southern boy, I talk slow. So America, that was quick. America has cut our carbon footprint in half in the last 25 years. So places where they are continuing to increase: Africa, 950 million people. India, over 1 billion. China, over 1 billion. Why would we put ourselves at a disadvantage, devastating our own economy? Let's bring our jobs home.
We have a lot of different topics to get to.
Yeah, we do. We thank you all. Thank you, Senator Scott. So coming up next, the candidates will weigh in on what could be a defining issue in the 2024 campaign. The first Republican debate continues moments away.
guys.
Put that on mute for a second there. I'll watch it as wow, that was a great starter for all this. Lots of good fireworks.
Oh, yeah, man, well, just a quick one, guys. Just a quick one. It's a fiery debate. Sorry, guys, I don't know if you can hear me. Just a quick one, fiery debate. We are posting the coverage from the Tucker Carlson, some clips from it. It's in the Nest. Various clips. He's talked about some interesting things in terms of Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson. I covered a number of interesting issues. So anybody wants to check them out, the clips are in the Nest. Sorry, Justin and Chris, go ahead.
Well, we can watch Trump's little safe space with Tucker Carlson some other time. But I got to say, you had Vivek there saying, I'm not bought and paid for. And I think that was DeSantis that hit back and said, oh, yeah, really? And, he's a Paul and Daisy Soros Foundation scholar. It was hilarious how Chris Christie called him.
How much money he take from Griffin?
Chat GPT. Oh, that was funny.
Well, can I finish? Can I finish here? But I'll tell you, DeSantis chiming in, going after Fauci, saying he will not lock the country down again. That is what people need to know. All this inflation, all this stuff happened because Trump shut down the country and turned it over to Fauci. And we have now people saying masks are coming back. Another variant is here. We cannot go through that again. And with Ron DeSantis, we're not going to go through that again. I thought it was great how he said, we're not going to handle this like children. We're going to talk. Ron DeSantis has a amazing record of handling natural disasters, of handling Hurricane Ian. He has just run this state great, and I think his responses were absolutely fantastic.
We're still on commercial break here. Let's get some thoughts from the Trump side there.
Well, I thought DeSantis was about as
really
charming.
Mike there, Doc. Can you
I'm sorry. I thought DeSantis. All right, go to someone else. Go ahead.
Yeah. Let's go to Jack. What do you think?
I think, here we go with DeSantis, Trump again. I mean, DeSantis has been an incredible governor. Again, I liked him so much, I moved into his state. However, President Trump, when he gets back in office, is going to have a very decisive plan and what needs to get done. And I think it's going to benefit our country moving forward. It's going to benefit our country for our children and our grandchildren. It's going to be on energy, and it's also going to be on domestic security in cleaning up the FBI and cleaning up the DOJ and cleaning up our judicial system.
I appreciate that, Jack. Let me go to Brian quickly, just because I'm trying to move to people as quick as possible. Brian, is it 73 million in 30 minutes? 73 million views. Go ahead, Brian. Sorry.
Yeah, so I feel that Ron DeSantis seemed pretty robotic, at least from the start. Vivek's very high energy, likable. Disagree with his climate change comment. Chris Christie Chat GPT comment was amazing.
Looks like your candidates are coming back on stage here, but they're still on commercial. Hang on.
I just wanted to say that Hutchinson is a governor who couldn't even protect children in his states. He allowed them to be mutilated. He vetoed a ban on minor surgery. Burgum, this is a guy who, before everybody else, wanted to make North Dakota, whichever Dakota he's from, carbon neutral by 2030. To hear these people talk out of both sides of their mouth, that's all you need to know. And I'll end with Haley. How much money does she still want to send to Ukraine while she talks about the budget? Let's just be honest.
Two observations real quick from me. One, Asa Hutchinson is wearing a combined U.S.-Israeli flag lapel pin, which I find interesting. That. I didn't know he was connected to, and Christie calling Ramaswamy skinny is the
skinny. Chat GPT was funny. No, because we had some good debate. Now the question is going to be is like, what are the highlights tomorrow? Are we going to have like a clip fest back and forth? They're coming back on the stage. Here we go.
Abortion has been a losing issue for Republicans since the Dobbs decision. In 6 state referendums, all have upheld abortion rights in this country. And even in red states, there are more swing state referendums that are coming up as we head into the elections as well on this. So, Governor Haley, what do you say to your party and to your state, which today confirmed a 6-week abortion law as well, especially the impact on women suburban voters across this country?
Thank you, Martha. I am unapologetically pro-life, not because the Republican Party tells me to be, but because my husband was adopted and I had trouble having both of my children. So I'm surrounded by blessings. Having said that, we need to stop demonizing this issue. This is talking about the fact that unelected justices didn't need to decide something this personal because it's personal for every woman and man. Now it's been put in the hands of the people. That's great. When it comes to a federal ban, let's be honest with the American people and say it will take 60 Senate votes. It will take a majority of the House. So in order to do that, let's find consensus. Can't we all agree that we should ban late-term abortions? Can't we all agree that we should encourage adoptions? Can't we all agree that doctors and nurses who don't believe in abortion shouldn't have to perform them? Can't we all agree that contraception should be available? And can't we all agree that we are not going to put a woman in jail or give her the death penalty if she gets an abortion? Let's treat this like a respectful issue that it is and humanize the situation and stop demonizing the situation.
Brett, Governor, you're not mentioned, Vice President Pence. Governor DeSantis, you signed a 6-week abortion ban in Florida. One of your biggest financial backers said that you need to, quote, shift to get moderates or you will lose. What do you say to him and others who say politically that is a tough thing to sell nationally?
Well, I would say we sold the biggest election landslide victory in the history of the Republican Party in the state of Florida in 2022. That's what I did. We can win. But second of all, look, you got to do what you think is right. I believe in a culture of life. I was proud to sign the heartbeat bill. I remember one of the most impactful moments of my life was when I heard the heartbeat of my oldest daughter in my wife's womb and then saw the sonograms of all 3 of my kids. What the Democrats are trying to do on this issue is wrong, to allow abortion all the way up to the moment of birth. I know a lady in Florida named Penny. She survived multiple abortion attempts. She was left discarded in a pan. Fortunately, her grandmother saved her and brought her to a different hospital. We're better than what the Democrats are selling. We are not going to allow abortion all the way up till birth, and we will hold them accountable for their extremism.
But just to be clear, Governor, would you sign a 6-week ban federally?
I'm going to stand on the side of life. Look, I understand Wisconsin is going to do it different than Texas. I understand Iowa and New Hampshire are going to do different. But I will support the cause of life as governor and as president.
Vice President Pence, you're shaking your head.
Have a national.
Hold on, Senator. Vice President Pence, you're shaking your head.
Well, look, I'm not new to this cause. After I gave my life to Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, I opened up the book and I read, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And see, I set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life." And I knew from that moment on, the cause of life had to be my cause. And I've been a champion for life in the Congress, a champion for life as governor and as vice president. And to be honest with you, Nikki, you're my friend, but consensus is the opposite of leadership. When the Supreme Court returned this question to the American people, they didn't just send it to the states only. It's not a states only issue, it's a moral issue. And I promise you, as President of the United States, the American people will have a champion for life in the Oval Office. Can't we have a minimum standard in every state in the nation that says when a baby is capable of feeling pain, an abortion cannot be allowed? A 15-week ban is an idea whose time has come. It's supported by 70% of the American people, but it's going to take unapologetic leadership that stands on principle and expresses compassion for women in crisis pregnancies. I'll do that as President of the United States.
He called my name, so I want to respond to that. 30 seconds. So first of all, I will say it is in the hands of the people, and that's where it should be. But when you're talking about a federal ban, be honest with the American people. We haven't had 45 pro-life senators in over 100 years. So no Republican president can ban abortions any more than a Democrat president could ban all those state laws. Don't make women feel like they have to decide on this issue when you know we don't have 60 Senate votes in the House.
70% of the American people support legislation
but
to
70%
ban
of
abortion
the
after
Senate
a baby is
does
capable
not.
of experiencing pain.
Leadership. Hold on. 70% of the Senate does not. You have to be honest with the American people.
Let's
get Governor Bergman for one minute here.
So, but the Supreme Court did overturn Roe v. Wade. And the result of that decision was that it went back to the states. So that's where it is right now. So as I understand it, you are not in favor of a federal ban. What do you say about the states? There's about 5 of them, including New Jersey, I think a few others, that allow abortion up until the time of birth, though. If you were president, would you be able to abide that?
Well, first of all, I'm a pro-life governor of a very pro-life state. And this issue is, of course, very important. But I am on the record, and I stand behind that we should not have a federal abortion ban. We should not. And the reason why we shouldn't is very simple. It's the 10th Amendment in the Constitution. In the Constitution, which the states created the federal government, not the other way around, it says that there were certain duties allowed to the federal government delegated to them by the states. The rest are left to the states, comma, or importantly, or to the people. We need to get back to freedom and liberty for the people in this country. And we can't have Republicans who fight for 50 years for this great cause and to return it back to the states. And then the next day they turn around and go, no, the feds should do that, because the feds are stepping into people's lives. They're stepping into people's businesses over and over. If we say that the feds should be in on this one, where do we stop? I say that we follow the Constitution, and this is returned to the states. This is where it should be.
But Governor Burgum, you signed a 6-week ban. Time out. You signed a 6-week ban. Governor Burgum, you signed a 6-week ban. So you're saying federally, it's all going to go to the states.
Yes, and what is going to work in New York will never work in North Dakota, and vice versa. That's
Governor
why 50 states. That's why 50 states.
This is too important of an issue that I have to address. First of all, the Supreme Court gave it back to the elected representatives, whether it's the states or whether it's the United States Congress.
That's
so
right.
there is authority. And that's why President Biden is pushing for a Democrat proposal, which is, in essence, abortion on demand through the term. So they have their extreme position at a national level. It's most likely going to be addressed in the states, but it's certainly fine for it to be addressed at the national level as well. Arkansas has the record of being the most pro-life state in the nation. I signed 30 pro-life pieces of legislation while I was governor. And every state can determine a different outcome here. And it is the most important issue for women and for the unborn child and for our country that we get this right. It's going to be a continued debate. Let's talk about it in terms of compassion, in terms of protecting the life, and also understanding how we have to enhance adoption services, how we have to enhance paternal care. Those things we've done in Arkansas and are important for our nation's future.
There are a lot of issues that are very important. Senator, I'll let you weigh in.
We cannot let states like California, New York, and Illinois have abortions on demand up until the day of birth. That is immoral. It is unethical. It is wrong. We must have a president of the United States who will advocate and fight for, at the minimum, a 15-week limit. I am 100% pro-life conservative. I have 100% pro-life record. I got to tell you, though, we must fight for life. Our Declaration of Independence says our Creator gave us inalienable rights that include life. That is a list. That is an issue we must solve. We can't leave it to Illinois. We can't leave it to Minnesota. We can't leave it to Illinois. We must solve that issue with a 15-week limit at a minimum.
Brett, I think we're all pro-life. But what I would love is for someone to ask Biden and Kamala Harris, are they for 38 weeks? Are they for 39 weeks? Are they for 40 weeks? Because that's what the media needs to be asking.
All right. Another issue is America and the crime crisis, the homelessness crisis. American cities are in decline. People are moving out as homelessness, drugs, crime move in. There are problems accelerated. They did accelerate during the pandemic and are still rising, actually.
Murders in Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, all up 30% between 2019 and 2022. Homelessness is up 11%, the largest jump in recorded history. Vice President Pence, a lot of this began in the COVID era. How much of what we're seeing happening around this country is a result of those COVID lockdowns? And is your administration in part to blame for how we got here?
Well, I think what's in part to blame is the Democrats have been talking about defunding the police for the last 5 years. And we ought to be funding law enforcement, particularly in our major cities, at unprecedented levels. I mean, it's extraordinary to think about the violence that's claiming innocent lives literally every week in every major city in this country. And yet Democrats and liberal prosecutors in major metropolitan areas continue to work out their fanciful agendas, to do bail reform and go easy. What we need is strong commitment to law enforcement. We need leadership in Washington, D.C. that'll marshal the resources of the states, marshal the resources of the American people. But let me also say it's about opportunity. I mean, a lot of people don't know that those Trump-Pence tax cuts that we got signed into law go away at the end of 2025 if we don't have a Republican president and a Republican House and a Republican Senate. When I'm president of the United States, we're actually going to cut taxes further. We're going to extend those tax cuts, and we're going to close the federal Department of Education, block grant all that funding back to the states. With a growing economy and educational choice and law enforcement, we will bring our cities back.
Governor Christie, another issue. This weekend here in Milwaukee, reports say there were 30 shootings, and a number of them including kids. Add that to the big increase in school shootings around the country. Democrats blame this crisis on easy access to guns. They also blame Republicans for blocking gun control legislation. What would President Christie do?
You know, I'm proud of the fact, Brett, that I'm the only person along with Governor Hutchinson up on this stage who's actually running United States Attorney's Office. I ran the 5th largest office in America in a state where there is significant urban crime. And the problem is not going to be solved by more money. The problem is that these prosecutors in these localities in the states are refusing to do their job and to arrest violent criminals. So what a President Christie would do is appoint an attorney general who would instruct each of the 93 U.S. attorneys that they are to take over the prosecution of violent crime in every one of those cities that are failing to do so. We have plenty of room in the federal prisons to lock up these violent criminals and clean up what's going on all across this country in these individual cities. Secondly, what we need to make sure that each and every one of these criminals understand is that the laws apply to everybody. And when Hunter Biden fills out a fake application, a false application for a gun permit, and then is facing a 10-year mandatory minimum, which was mandated by legislation sponsored by his father. And then you have a Justice Department that walks away from those charges. We're telling people that the law doesn't apply to everybody. In a Christie administration, he would go to jail for 10 years.
What about a President Ramaswamy? What does a President Ramaswamy do about guns?
So the reality is we have a crime wave in this country and we know how to fix it. The question is, do we actually have the spine to do it? More cops in the streets who are on the streets able to do their jobs without looking over their shoulder for getting sued. And we also have a mental health epidemic in this country. Just over the same period that we have closed mental health institutions, we have seen a spike in violent crime. Do we have the spine to bring them back? I think we should. As president, I will. But it's not just drugging up people in those psychiatric institutions with Zoloft and Seroquel. It's a deeper issue. I think faith-based approaches can play a role here too. We're in the middle of a national identity crisis. And I say this as a member of my generation. The problem in our country right now, the reason we have that mental health epidemic, is that people are so hungry for purpose and meaning at a time when family, faith, patriotism, hard work have all disappeared. What we really need is a tonal reset from the top, saying that this is what it means to be an American. Yes, we will stand for the rule of law. Yes, we will close the southern border where criminals are coming in every day. And yes, we will back law enforcement because we remember who we really are. And that's also how we address that mental health epidemic in the next generation that is directly leading to violent crime across this country.
Governor DeSantis, really quickly. Governor DeSantis.
We don't have an identity crisis, Vivek. We're not looking for a new national identity. The American people are the most faith-filled, freedom-loving, idealistic, hardworking people the world has ever known. We just need government as good as our people.
Well, Mike, I think the difference is you might have some others like you may have on the stage. It's Morning in America speech. It is not Morning in America. We live in a dark moment, and we have to confront the fact that we're in an internal sort of cold cultural civil
You
war.
are
And we have to
equating the
recognize
American
that
people with a
actually
failed
win.
government in Washington, D.C. We just need government as good as our people again.
So
Governor
let me just
Governor
finish
DeSantis,
addressing
I
that
wanna
slogan
weigh
because I don't
in
know what that slogan
Brett,
means.
Mark,
We
I
need to
want you
shut
to
down
weigh
the
in, Governor
administrative state.
DeSantis.
And Mark, that's actually how we translate.
Crime has been on the rise in Florida, Governor DeSantis. How do you stop crime?
Well, actually, crime's at a 50-year low
Not
in Florida.
not in
We're
Miami.
happy with that. Well, the statewide, it's a 50-year low. And so here's the thing. These hollowed out cities, this is a symptom of America's decline. And one of the biggest reasons is because you have George Soros funding these radical left-wing district attorneys. They get into office and they say they're not going to prosecute crimes they disagree with. The inmates start running the asylum. There's one guy in this entire country that's ever done anything about that. Me. When we had two of these district attorneys in Florida elected with Soros funding who said they wouldn't do their job, I removed them from their posts. They are gone. And as president, we are going to go after all of these people because they are hurting the quality of life and they are victimizing innocent people in every corner of this country. And it will stop when I get into office.
Okay, one more here before the break, Governor Bergen.
Brett and Martha, I just thought it was interesting. You asked your question about the problems we're having in big cities. Nobody ever asked the question of what about the crime wave in small towns? Because in a small town, neighbors help neighbors. People understand each other. If a farmer gets sick, everybody comes together and helps him get the crop off. There's accountability. There's transparency. One thing that I think this country could use is somebody in the White House that understands small town values, because that's our road back to get this country on track again.
Governor Hutchinson?
As former head of the DEA, I understand the drug crisis in America. And right now, whenever you look at the challenges in our inner city, there's three simple words that would be helpful. One, enforce the law when it comes to crime. Secondly, let's deal with the challenge of fentanyl. And it's both about stopping the fentanyl coming from Mexico, but it's also about education of our young people, making sure that we have the tools that are needed for addiction counseling. That's what we expanded in Arkansas as well. Whenever you look at the underlying challenge of America, though, no one likes to see an America with smash and grab in our inner cities. As president of the United States, that will stop. It starts at the top with the respect for our justice system that a former president who's under indictment has undermined by attacking judges, by attacking prosecutors, by attacking the system and saying he's aggrieved. And so we have to have respect for our justice system and the rule of law, and it starts at the top with the President of the United States.
Brett, thank you.
We're going to take a break. So speaking of that, right now you are looking live at Fulton County Jail, where former President Donald Trump will be processed tomorrow. So next, the candidates will have an opportunity to talk about the coming trials of Donald Trump.
I mean, my initial thought, yeah.
Go, Suleiman.
So, I mean,
There we go. Go ahead.
yeah, let me go to Chris. Okay, Chris wants to jump in. Chris, just before I go to you, though, my initial thought is, it seems like Trump made a really good decision not joining that debate. Like, there's just way too many people there. You're not able to basically get your points across, and they're almost trying to be like Trump, where they get their little jabs in as much as possible. And the more I listen to, I think he made a sublime decision. But anyway, Chris, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, you could say Trump made a mistake, but I don't think he's thinking that. I bet you he's wishing he was up on that stage because there's just so much red meat there. But, they asked Mike Pence, what happened with the lockdowns and the shutdowns? Because he was, running the COVID task force, and he immediately changes the subject. And it's like Trump needs to be up there to answer for that. That's the question that needs to be asked of Trump, because we have this alleged wave of COVID coming back. Are you going to shut the country back down? Are you going to go along with this? He still claims the vaccine saved billions of lives. So, that's a big question that's not going to be answered. But, when it comes to abortion, we now know Nikki Haley got really angry there, man. She sounded really angry. And it's kind of nice not having the video, because you can You can hear the tone in their voice better, but you can tell she's pro-choice. I think Nikki Haley's finished after tonight. Ron DeSantis gave, I think, the best answer to that question, because really he was asking him, hey, look, are you going to go with the people? Because, there was somebody that snuck into his meeting and he had advisors telling him that he should go another direction.
Chris.
With abortion.
Sorry,
I'll wrap it up. I'll land the
okay.
plane.
One second. I just want to get through as many people as possible. I'm not trying to be rude. I just want to get through because it was short.
Okay,
Prodigal, go ahead.
I'll
Quick 30 seconds.
Right.
Prodigal.
Oh, me? Yeah, I just wanted to address, for COVID, let's just be honest. DeSantis locked down the state. 7 governors chose not to. He re-locked down the state in June, certain parts of it. Like, Chris, you can say whatever you want. This guy wanted to quarantine the tri-state area. I know because I was here. I remember the beaches. And I'm glad he opened up and reversed course. But to speak about him on these issues, you can't. Are they still giving out the vaccine in Florida? Yes. If it's harmful, then why is he allowing it? Right. And
we
the
have
other thing I want to say is I didn't interrupt you. Relax. When it comes to poverty is real simple. When you let 7 million illegals in, you're not going to be able to afford rent, regardless of what the Fed does, because there's only so much housing. Like, you look at discretionary funding, savings, that's all happened in about the last 6 months. It's evaporated. So this wasn't from COVID, right? The inflation and the issues you're seeing now is basically an open border and a federal government that is not only using money, but it's not money that helps the government. When somebody said it earlier, they're correct. When you're relying on China for all your rare earth elements and for battery production, etc., of course the price is going to go up when you're in the midst of a geopolitical struggle with the Sino-Russian alliance. This might be a little bit complicated for you. Read up a little bit, Chris, and we can talk about it later.
Trump shut down the country and signed the CARES Act. That's what started.
Oh, we've gone over 7 states never shut down. DeSantis shut down Florida again in June. He was
guys. We're gonna get into this debate after the debate. Let me just quickly get to Ryan. Ryan, initial thoughts on the debate?
I was watching.
Did he cut out? Is somebody talking right now?
Oh, right. Okay. I thought it was me. So sorry.
Oh no, I think I got remuted. No, I was saying I got into it after the last commercial. I was watching it. I got the last half. A lot of people up there who want to beat Trump. They're wearing red ties. They're doing the hand motions. They're all trying to sort of reenact the act to get the favor of the American populace. I don't think it's going to work. One thing too with the lockdowns, 2 weeks to stop the spread. This is one thing that nobody could have ever predicted or even known. And one thing for everyone in here, it's not the president who shuts down the states, it's the governors who shut down the states. I'll leave it with that.
Not according to Trump.
And the
someone should have told Trump that.
Yeah. I remember he sent the COVID stormtroopers after Kristi Noem. I remember Houston and Miami institution. Like, we know the mayors and the governors control it.
Lots of gaslighting there. We all lived through this.
Listen,
we all lived through it.
It's insulting.
We know who was standing next to Fauci.
New Jersey, and I know the name of my health commissioner and the governor.
Even DeSantis was listening to Fauci.
All
right, we're back. We're back. Hang on. Coming back.
They want to rewrite.
But we have a lot to get to in this second hour of this GOP primary debate. Policy discussions the Americans want to hear you all on. China, Ukraine, immigration, education. But we are going to take a brief moment and talk about the elephant not in the room.
Former President Trump has been indicted in 4 different states on 91 counts. He will be processed tomorrow in Georgia at the Fulton County Jail for charges relating to the 2020 election loss.
You all signed a pledge to support the eventual Republican nominee. If former President Trump is convicted in a court of law, would you still support him as your party's choice? Please raise your hand if you would.
Did DeSantis raise his hand?
Just hold on. So just to be clear, Governor Christie.
It was a weird question.
No,
I'm doing this. Look, I'm doing this.
And I know you didn't.
Whoa. No.
What's the
look, here's the bottom line. Someone's got to stop normalizing this conduct. Okay? Now whether or not you believe that the criminal charges are right or wrong, The conduct is beneath the office of President of the United States. And you know, this is the great thing about this country. Booing is allowed, but it doesn't change the truth. It doesn't change the truth.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you raise your hand supporting.
I'd like to get in and respond. Let's just speak the truth, okay? President Trump, I believe, was the best president of the 21st century. It's a fact. And Chris Christie, honest to God, your claim that Donald Trump is motivated by vengeance and grievance would be a lot more credible if your entire campaign were not based on vengeance and grievance against one man. And if people at home want to see a bunch of people blindly bashing Donald Trump without an iota of vision for this country, they could just change the channel to MSNBC right now. But I'm not running for president of MSNBC. I am running for president of the United States. We're skating on thin ice, and we cannot set a precedent where the party in power uses police force to indict its political opponents. It is wrong. We have to end the weaponization of justice in this country.
30 seconds, Governor DeSantis.
You know, let me take.
No, I'm sorry. 30 seconds, Governor.
You make me laugh because
Goes both ways, brother.
you sit here in an answer. You sit here in an answer right. You sit here in an answer.
Go ahead, Governor Christie.
Hold on, Governor Christie.
Hold on.
Well, so listen, the more time we spend doing this, the less time they can talk about issues you want to talk about. So let's just get through this section. Governor Christie.
You sit here talking about how you want to stand up for the rule of law.
Yes.
And law and order. And the fact is that it can't be selective. In your book, you had much different things to say about Donald Trump than you're saying here tonight.
That's not true.
Well, it is very true.
That is not true.
It's very true. I read it, and I know.
Look, bad behavior and illegal behavior, Chris, and you as a prosecutor should know better.
Yeah, you know what? I know a lot better.
There's a difference between bad behavior.
And I know a lot better than you do. You've never done it like you've never done anything to try to advance the interests of this government except to put yourself forward as a candidate tonight. And here's the thing. We've stood up for law and order. I did it as U.S. attorney. I did it as governor. And I am not going to bow to anyone when we have a president of the United States who disrespects the Constitution. He said,
Your MSNBC contributor.
he said, Martha, it's important to say that the president said, Donald Trump said, it's okay to suspend the Constitution. Now, the oath you take is to preserve, protect, and defend, not suspend. I will always stand up for our Constitution, regardless of the political pressure.
We have another question for you. We're going to get everyone in on this issue, but I have another question. Hold on, you will. All right. So President Trump's former vice president is on this stage tonight. He has faced hecklers on the campaign trail over his actions on January the 6th. On that day, the vice president moved forward with the certification of the election. So do you believe that Mike Pence did the right thing, Senator Scott? Do you believe he did the right thing?
Absolutely. He did the right thing. Number one. Number two, we should be asking ourselves a bigger question about the weaponization of the Department of Justice. When I'm president, the first thing I'll do is fire Merrick Garland. Second thing I'll do, fire Christopher Wray, because we need Lady Justice to wear a blindfold. Without that, no one has confidence in our justice system. 17% of Republicans have confidence in our Department of Justice. Here's why. We keep seeing not only the weaponization of the Department of Justice against political opponents, but also against parents who show up at school board meetings. They're called, under this DOJ, they're called domestic terrorists.
Firing Christopher Wray,
that's not it. But that's not
shut down the FBI. Actually have the courage to get it right.
Let me finish my comments.
Yes.
Not only that, in addition to that, we see the SWAT team show up at pro-life activist homes with guns drawn, because this DOJ uses their power, uses their authority, not just against political opponents, but against conservatives and conservative causes. It is time for a change in America, and I will bring that change to the greatest nation on God's green earth.
We have an important
But Governor DeSantis, do you believe that Mike Pence did the right thing on January 6th?
So here's what we need to do. We need to end the weaponization of these federal agents.
But that's not
I
the
will do
question.
that.
That's not the question.
I know, but here's the thing.
Can I answer the
This
question?
election is not about January 6th of 2021. It's about January 20th of 2025, when the next president is going to take office. I know what the Democrats would like to do. They want to talk about all these other issues, but we've got to focus on your future. We've got to focus on reversing the decline of our country.
Right.
I learned in the military, I was assigned with U.S. Navy SEALs in Iraq, that you focus on the mission above all else. You can't get distracted. So Republicans, we've got to look forward, and we've got to make sure that we're bringing the message that can win in November 2024.
Did not answer the question.
Vice President Pence, what do you think, Vice President?
Is to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. I think the American people deserve to know whether everyone on this stage agrees that I kept my oath to the Constitution that day. There's no more important duty. So answer the question.
I've answered this before.
So yes.
Why are we? Mike did his duty. I got no beef with him. But here's the thing: is this what we're going to be focusing on going forward? The rehashing of this. I'll tell you,
Governor
the
DeSantis,
Democrats would love that, and they will win if we let them get away with it. I'm not letting Biden hang out in the basement this time. We're going to run him ragged around this country, and we're going to hold him accountable.
Let me just say, Governor DeSantis, we spent an hour talking about policy. Former President Trump is beating you by 30, 40 points in many polls. So it is a factor in the GOP primary. Governor Hutchinson, you did not raise your hand.
I did not raise my hand because there's an important issue we as a party have to face. And over a year ago, I said that Donald Trump was morally disqualified from being president again as a result of what happened on January 6th. More people are understanding the importance of that, including conservative legal scholars who says he may be disqualified under the 14th Amendment from being president again as a result of the insurrection. This is something that could disqualify him under our rules and under the Constitution. And so, obviously, I'm not going to support somebody who's been convicted of a serious felony or who is disqualified under our Constitution. And that's consistent with RNC rules. And I hope everybody would agree with me.
We're going to move on.
Martha, can I answer the question?
Can I get in on
Okay, I'd like to answer.
You have already been on it, Vice President Pence.
All right, I'd like to answer the question
Go
you
ahead.
asked and not give a pre-canned speech. Mike Pence stood for the Constitution, and he deserves not grudging credit. He deserves our thanks as Americans for putting his oath of office and the Constitution of the United States before personal, political, and unfair pressure. And the argument that we need to have in this party before we can move on to the issues that Ron talked about is we have to dispense with the person who said that we need to suspend the Constitution to put forward his political career. Mike Pence said no, and he deserves credit for it.
Okay. Governor Haley, we haven't heard from you on this. Do you agree? Do you agree that Vice President Pence did the right thing that day or not?
I do think that Vice President Pence did the right thing. And I do think that we need to give him credit for that. But what I will also tell you is, look, I mean, when it comes to whether President Trump should serve or not, I trust the American people. Let them vote. Let them decide. But what they will tell you is that it is time for a new generational conservative leader. We have to look at the fact that 3/4 of Americans don't want a rematch between Trump and Biden. And we have to face the fact that Trump is the most disliked politician in America. We can't win a general election that way.
Governor Bergen.
It's Governor Bergen opportunity.
Happy to answer the question. Mike Pence did the right thing on January 6th. But I want to say, you started off the top of this hour saying we're going to talk about China, Ukraine, education.
We are.
China is the number one threat to our country. And every minute that these 8 candidates spend talking about the past instead about the future is time that is just you know who loves it? Biden loves it, but China loves it when we're talking about the past.
Okay. As promised, we were going to spend a few questions on it, let people say what they wanted to say. And now, indeed, we are moving on to the subject.
The U.S. has committed nearly 77.
Can I speak on this issue? I was.
You
kind of
did.
involved.
You answered on this.
You did say
answer.
something.
Yeah.
We thought you were done, but you
No, I
please.
wasn't done.
Well, Mike, why don't you say this? Join me
Yeah.
in making a commitment that on day one you would pardon Donald Trump. I'm the only candidate on the stage who had the courage to actually say it. That is how we move our nation forward.
I don't know
and
why
turn the
you
page
assume that
forward. That's
Donald
exactly
Trump
right.
will be convicted of these crimes.
You should be able to make a commitment. The same justice system that was this
Here's
corrupt.
the difference between you and me.
Yeah, I'm not a professional
I've actually-
politician. That's the
I've
difference. You can
actually,
answer a question.
I've actually given pardons when I was governor of the state of Indiana. It usually follows a finding of guilt and contrition by the individual that's been convicted. So, look, if I'm president of the United States, we'll give fair consideration to any pardon request. But if I may, you know, it's not about looking back at January 2021. It's about January 20th, 2017. I put my left hand on Ronald Reagan's Bible. I raised my right hand. And I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And it ended with a prayer, so help me God. It was a promise that I made to the American people, but I also made it to my Heavenly Father. Every day for 4 years, I sought to keep that oath. And everyone on this stage needs to make it clear whether or not they'll do the same if they earn this job and the confidence of the American people. Now, look, I've made it clear. I had hoped that the issues surrounding the 2020 election and the controversies around January 6th had not come to this, had not come to criminal proceedings. I would rather they had been resolved by the American people and the American people alone. But no one's above the law, and President Trump is entitled to the presumption of innocence that every American is entitled to, and we will make sure and extend that to him. But the American people deserve to know that the president asked me in his request that I reject or return votes unilaterally, power that no vice president in American history had ever exercised or taken. He asked me to put him over the Constitution. And I chose the Constitution, and I always will. I had no right to overturn the election, and Kamala Harris will have no right to overturn the election when we beat them in 2024.
Thank you, Vice President Pence. Now we are moving on to other issues. The U.S. has committed nearly $77 billion in aid to the Ukraine war. The administration is now asking Congress for $24 billion more. Regardless of that, the specifics of that plan, is there anyone on stage who would not support the increase of more funding to Ukraine?
We would
not support it.
Europe needs to step up. I mean, I would have Europe step up and do their job.
Mr. Ramaswamy, but you're saying you would not too, Governor DeSantis?
I will have Europe pull their weight. Right
would-
now, they're not doing
you
that.
would not
And I
support
think
more
we need
funding?
to do, and I think our support should be contingent on them doing it. And I would have support in China to be able to take China and do what we need to do with China.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you would not support an increase of funding to Ukraine?
I would not. And I think that this is disastrous, that we are protecting against an invasion across somebody else's border when we should use those same military resources to prevent across the invasion of our own southern border here in the United States of America. We are driving Russia further into China's hands. The Russia-China alliance is the single greatest threat we face. And I find it offensive that we have professional politicians on the stage that will make a pilgrimage to Kyiv, to their Pope, Zelensky, without doing the same thing for people in Maui or the south side of Chicago or Kensington. I think that we have to put the interests of Americans first, secure our own border instead of somebody else's. And the reality is, this is also how we project strength by making America strong at home.
All right. We heard the names. Governor Christie first.
All right. Look, I did go to Ukraine, and I went to Ukraine because I wanted to see for myself what Vladimir Putin's army was doing to the free Ukrainian people. And let me tell you, I want you all to look around this arena tonight and imagine that every one of these seats was filled. And if every one of them was filled, there would still be 2,500 more children outside to make over 20,000 who have been abducted, stolen, ripped from their mothers and fathers, and brought back to Russia to be programmed to fight their own families. They have gouged out people's eyes, cut off their ears, and shot people in the back of the head, men, and then gone into those homes and raped the daughters and the wives who were left as widows and orphans. This is the Vladimir Putin. This is the Vladimir Putin who Donald Trump called brilliant and a genius. If we don't stand up against this type of autocratic killing in the world, we will be next.
You were mentioned.
Governor Haley. We'll come back.
Vice President Pence was mentioned. You get 30 seconds.
Yeah, well, let me be clear. Anybody that thinks that we can't solve the problems here in the United States and be the leader of the free world has a pretty small view of the greatest nation on earth.
That is incorrect.
We can do both, Vivek. We've done both. We've been the leader of the free world and the arsenal of democracy for years. The Reagan Doctrine years ago made it clear. We said, if you're willing to fight the communists on your soil, we'll give you the means to fight them there so our troops don't have to fight them. Vivek, if we do the giveaway that you want to give to Putin to give him his land, it's not going to be too long before he rolls across a NATO border. And frankly, our men and women of our armed forces are going to have to go and fight him. I want to let the Ukrainians fight and drive Putin and the Russians back out into Russia.
I want to just briefly address that, Vice President Pence. I have a newsflash. The USSR does not exist anymore. It fell back in 1990.
Did I say
the real threat? You talked about the communists, and the real communists that we have to address right now
have any
is the
idea what Vladimir Putin's aims
you
are.
already spoke. Now I actually have something to say.
Vladimir Putin has been saying he wants to reestablish the old Soviet sphere
You've made
of
your point,
influence.
Vice President.
Now, I'm sorry if I insulted him by calling him a communist. He is a dictator and a murderer, and the United States of America needs to stand against authoritarianism.
Mr. Ramaswamy, 30 seconds.
Respond. The real threat we face today is communist China, and we are driving Russia further into China's arms. The Russia-China military alliance is the single greatest threat we face. Nobody in either political party is talking about it, and I am the only non-neocon on this stage who will keep us out of war.
Mr. Vice President, we can't hear.
Mr. Vice President, to give Russia everything they've got.
Mr. Vice President,
give them a promise that Ukraine will never be in NATO, and then somehow
Mr. Vice President,
China will not think about taking Taiwan. We achieve peace through strength.
Mr. Vice
and
President,
America needs to stand for freedom.
Okay, here we go.
I think we need to establish some ground rules.
When
here,
we
folks.
hear this bell,
Yes.
that means your time's done.
We're done.
So, Mr. Vice President, we appreciate your aggressiveness here. 30 seconds is 30 seconds. Mr. Ramaswamy, you were mentioned. You get 30 seconds.
So the reality is that today, Ukraine is not a priority for the United States of America. And I think that the same people who took us into the Iraq War, the same people who took us into the Vietnam War, you cannot start another no-win war. And I do not want to get to the point where we're sending our military resources abroad when we could be better using them here at home to protect our own borders, protect the homeland.
All right.
That will be my top priority in foreign
I think
policy.
we gave you
Protect
more
this
than the 30
homeland.
seconds in the rebut. So I do want to get to some other people because everybody, we respect everybody's time here. So Governor Haley, you did not raise your hand, meaning that you would support more funding for the Ukraine war. You have said of Governor DeSantis that you didn't appreciate it when he initially called it a territorial dispute. Why?
First of all, the American president needs to have moral clarity. They need to know the difference between right and wrong. They need to know the difference between good and evil. When you look at the situation with Russia and Ukraine, here you have a pro-American country that was invaded by a thug. So when you want to talk about what has been given to Ukraine, less than 3.5% of our defense budget has been given to Ukraine. If you look at the percentages per GDP, 11 of the European countries have given more than the U.S. But what's really important is go back to when China and Russia held hands, shook hands before the Olympics, and named themselves unlimited partners. A win for Russia is a win for China. We have to know that. Ukraine is the first line of defense for us. And the problem that Vivek doesn't understand is he wants to hand Ukraine to Russia. He wants to let China eat Taiwan. He wants to go and stop funding Israel. You don't do that to friends. What you do instead is you have the backs of your friends. Ukraine is the front line of defense. Putin has said, once Russia takes Ukraine, Poland and the Baltics are next. That's a world war. We're trying to prevent war. Look at what Putin did today. He killed Prigozhin. When I was at the UN, the Russian ambassador suddenly died. This guy is a murderer, and you are choosing a murderer over a pro-American country.
First of all, Mr. Ramaswamy, you have 30 seconds. Mr. DeSantis,
Nikki, I wish you well in your future career on the boards of Lockheed and Raytheon.
I'm not on
but the fact of the matter,
and
Boeing came off of it, but you've been pushing this lie. You've been pushing this lie all week,
You want
Nikki.
to go and defund Israel? You want to
Okay,
give
let me
Taiwan
address
to
that.
China?
I'm glad you brought that up.
Go and give
I'm going to
Ukraine
address
Russia?
each of those right now. This is the false lies of a professional politician. There you have
Under
it.
your watch,
So the
you will make
reality is,
America less than you have no
Let me-
foreign policy experience, and it shows.
and you know what? The
It
foreign
shows.
policy experience that you all have shows in the pointless wars we've gotten into. I have to address that. So our relationship with Israel will never be stronger than by the end of my first term. But it's not a client relationship. It is a friendship. And you know what friends do? Friends help each other stand on their own 2 feet. So I will lead Abraham Accords 2.0. I will partner with Israel to make sure Iran never is nuclear armed. But you know what I love about Israel? And I've been there probably in the last 10 years more than most people on this stage. You know what I love about them? I love their border policies. I love their tough on crime policies. I love that they have a national identity and an iron dome to protect their homeland. And so, yes, I want to learn from the friends that we're supporting. And what puzzles me is, I want to learn from those and apply those to protect our homeland, Nikki.
Israel
That is
needs
the answer.
America. America needs Israel.
Okay,
They
Governor
are the front line of
Governor
defense.
DeSantis, you were mentioned in the territorial dispute. Not only
No, it's not a
So
territorial
as
dispute
President
either.
of the United States, your first obligation is to defend our country and its people. And that means you're sending all this money, but you're not doing what we need to do to secure our own border. We have tens of thousands of people
We can
who
do
are
both
being
at the
killed because,
same
well, we're
time.
not handling
And
both.
we can do
And so
both
I am going to declare it a national emergency. I'm not going to send troops to Ukraine, but I am going to send them to our southern border. When these drug pushers are bringing fentanyl across the border, that's going to be the last thing they do. We're going to use force, and we're going to leave them stone cold dead.
we're actually going to move on to China. We're going to talk about China.
Okay.
Governor Berger, China has the biggest navy in the world, the biggest army in the world. Now they have warships off the coast of Alaska. They are threatening Taiwan. In coming years, China will have 1,500 nuclear warheads, it's believed. The U.S. just arrested 2 sailors accused of spying for China within our military. So the question is, how would you deter China as a president, Berger?
Well, this is the number one issue we're facing. And of course, we haven't been talking about it. And we act like that letting Russia win in the Ukraine is like a gimme as opposed to a gift to China. Russia has become China's gas station. But how would we do it? The Biden administration is a complete fail. China imports 10 million barrels of oil a day, more than any other country in the world. They do not even have all the food they need to feed everybody in that country. So they don't have energy security or food security. But the Biden administration sends Blinken, Yellen over there. They're over there. They don't even bring up energy because they're too busy trying to kill the U.S. energy here. And what we need to do is not meetings, not press releases, because something that would send a lot more than a press release is actually Harpoon missiles. We need anti-ship missiles on Taiwan. The way that you have a war never start, which is the goal, the way you have peace through strength is that you actually have strength. You actually have deterrence. And what we have in what we've got going on in Ukraine is an example of when deterrence fail. What is an example there of Biden's disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, the fact that he greenlighted Putin moving into Ukraine, and then now they see weakness, and when they see weakness, they make a move. And we have to be strong, and we have to be strong both in Ukraine, and we can solve the southern border. Absolutely, we can do that, because guess what? There's only 19,855 authorized people for the Border Patrol, but they're not all staff because the Biden administration doesn't enforce law enforcement. But Biden administration wanted to put 87,000 people in the IRS as opposed to giving the money in the support we need to our own Border Patrol.
Okay. Senator Scott on China, that same question.
Let's fire the 87,000 IRS agents and hire or double the number of Border Patrol agents. I just left Yuma, Arizona about 2 weeks ago. The most pressing need of the American people from a national security standpoint is our southern border. It has led to the death of 70,000 Americans because of fentanyl, plus 6 million illegal crossings since President Biden has taken office, and 200 people on our national security watch list have been caught at our border. How many have not been caught at our southern border? If we just spend $10 billion, we could finish the wall. For $5 billion more, we could have the military-grade technology to surveil our southern border to stop the flow of fentanyl and save 70,000 Americans a year. That should be the priority of this government. And as the next president of the United States, I will make that border wall complete.
There are many more questions on China. I do want to ask
I want to say I couldn't agree more. It's not just the 70,000 from fentanyl. We've lost 200,000 people to overdoses since Biden took office. That's 300 people a day. We're taking mass casualties, and that's a statistic, but these are sons and daughters, nieces and nephews that we're losing. We've got North Dakota troops down there flying night helicopter missions from San Diego to the Gulf Coast, trying to stop these transnational criminal organizations. They've got better funding on their side than we've got on our side.
Speaking of which, Governor Hutchinson, images from earlier this month, Governor Hutchinson
with Mexico,
Vice President Pence, images from earlier this month. Vice President Pence, it really doesn't help. I'm asking a question. Earlier this month, images showed suspected cartel members crossing into Texas with rifles. Do you consider this an invasion? Would you authorize lethal force along that border?
There would be lethal force used by the Border Patrol, law enforcement as needed to protect the border. Absolutely. When you look at the military has to be used for intelligence gathering purposes. This is not unusual. Whenever I was in the Bush administration, we went down there and met with President Vicente Fox of Mexico and asked his help in going after the cartels. And he looked at me and said, they're a problem to us as well. And so we joined together and we took down the Ariana Felix brothers leading the Tijuana cartel. And that made a difference. Ramon was shot and killed and Ben Amin was captured. Cooperation makes a difference. We cannot be successful going against the cartel unless we bring in Mexico as a partner. We have to use economic pressure to accomplish that. President Obrador has not been helpful, and we have to use economic pressure that this administration is not using. The rule of law has to matter on both sides of it.
Okay.
This is critical. I've done it. We know what needs to be done. The military has to be limited in its use. When after 9/11, we had the global war on terror, and guess what? We protected the border at the same time. You can do both.
Okay, let's go to Governor DeSantis. So as president, would you support sending U.S. Special Forces over the border into Mexico to take out fentanyl labs, to take out drug cartel operations? Would you support that kind of American military use?
Yes, and I will do it on day one. Here's the thing. The cartels are killing tens of thousands of our fellow citizens. You want to talk about a country in decline? You have the cartels controlling a lot of part of your southern border. We have to reestablish the rule of law, and we have to defend our people. The president of the United States has got to use all available powers as commander in chief to protect our country and to protect the people. So when they're coming across, yes, we're going to use lethal force. Yes, we reserve the right to operate. How many more tens of thousands are we going to let to die? I am sick. I've met angel moms throughout this country. I met a lady in Texas named Tracy, and her son took one Percocet that was laced with fentanyl, immediately died. That is happening all across this country because of the poison that they are bringing in. So as president, would I use force? Would I treat them as foreign terrorist organizations? You're darn right I would.
You know, Vice President Pence, why would you be better at this issue than Governor DeSantis? Governor DeSantis on the campaign trail refers to your administration as not finishing the wall.
Right. Look, we secured the southern border of the United States of America and reduced illegal immigration and asylum abuse by 90%. When Joe Biden took over, he threw open the southern border of the United States, and the wave of humanity, the wave of fentanyl that's been eloquently described here is a wave of human tragedy across this country. But Martha, you began this evening talking about who is best prepared to be the next president of the United States. And I have to tell you, with all humility, I was there when we negotiated through the government shutdown and got the funding available to build the wall. I was negotiating on Capitol Hill around the clock. I negotiated the Remain in Mexico policy on behalf of the President of the United States. And Asa, you're so right. It's because we used economic pressure to bring the Mexicans to the table, and they allowed us to have people wait in Mexico while they applied for asylum and ended asylum abuse overnight. We got the Mexicans to deploy their National Guard to their southern border and to our southern border as never before. And I want to promise you, as President of the United States of America, I will engage Mexico the exact same way, and we will partner with the Mexican military, and we will hunt down and destroy the cartels that are claiming lives in the United States of America.
Okay, thank you. Another issue that is related to this is that almost 7 million migrants have crossed this border, our southern border, during the Biden administration. So, Governor Christie, what would you do about the 7 million who are here? How would you handle them? What would you do?
Look, Martha, the first thing we need to do is to stop any more from coming. That's the first thing we need to do. Then the next thing we need to do with the folks that are here is to, again, as we've talked about all night tonight, we have to have law and order in this country. We have to enforce the law. And what that means is to make sure that people who come here illegally are not rewarded for being here illegally. We have so many wonderful people from around the world who are waiting in line, following the law to try to come here and pursue the American dream. And those people are waiting and waiting and waiting because we haven't dealt with the problem of the folks who are here. We have to have them detained. We have to make sure that they are not rewarded for having broken the law. And one last thing on this fentanyl issue. With China, we can't take our eye off of that ball. Yes, it's important that we secure the border. Very important, as I just said. But China is sending these chemicals to these drug cartels for them to create the fentanyl that is killing hundreds of thousands of our citizens. The Chinese are engaging in an act of war against us, killing our citizens. We better make that priority one in our conversations with China and to try to straighten that relationship out, because if we don't, we're going to lose more and more of our citizens.
I just want to clarify, would you send those people back?
Of course. You'd have to.
We have a lot of issues that Americans care about. Next up, we're going to talk about the crisis in education, as millions of American children are not proficient in reading or math. After this.
Trying to mute it. There you go. Muted.
Let's go.
Everyone's still there.
Breck,
That's
what's
good
your thoughts?
stuff.
Let me go to Breck. Breck, what's your thoughts on the debate?
Yeah, I think that one thing, I just want to talk about that last segment there. One thing that's really got to stand out is the number of people of the border illegally under Biden And the commentator there said 7 million. By the time Biden's term is over, they could be north of 10 million people. And we're talking about 3% of the people in the United States, the people who are actually on the continent, will be illegal aliens who crossed the border in the last 4 years. That is completely unsupportable, and it's encouraging to me, even if it is lip service, because it does get the issue out there that people are actually talking about going across the border, taking out the cartels that are really, in my mind, one of the greatest driving factors of this illegal migration, because they profit from it so immensely.
Oh, are you coming over to the DeSantis side? Because I got to say, that's the best, and strongest answer I heard there from him. He just said yes, straight up. I was actually pretty surprised when he said that, that I'll use the military to go after these cartels.
No, I'm not coming over to DeSantis' side.
Well, I think the thing is, elections have consequences, and the reason that we have now this massive rush of folks coming across the border is because Trump is not in office. You can claim he's not in office for one reason or another, but because we have Biden in office, that is the primary reason why we've seen this massive surge. And it's so embarrassing that they've had to change their policies. They know it. I think it's a vulnerable issue, and I'm glad that Governor DeSantis had that great pivot to say, "Look, we've got to talk about this issue here." They're still at break. Any other comments here?
Yeah, I find all these candidates to be laughable. I mean, nobody cared about these issues till Trump brought them to the forefront. You want to know why it didn't work? Because all the traitors that we elected in the party betrayed them. There was always a judge in Hawaii. Thankfully, after 4 years, we have precedent and dicta where we can actually execute it. So, I hope Trump is in there. But if not, even his 4 years into office, people forget there was always a judge in Hawaii to issue an injunction. Those cases are done now. And to hear these politicians now, after all the money they've sent to Ukraine, and just deflect in regards to securing the border. I mean, you were losing 10,000 people a month to approximately to overdoses. I mean, these people don't care because it's not their constituents. It's the Rust
But
Belt.
Prodigal, you look at, the people that were supposed to get this job done: Sessions, Barr, Milley, Kelly, Powell, Mattis, Tillerson, Asper, Chow. The list goes on, and these terrible hires that Trump admits himself.
Well,
Paul
Paul Ryan was
bad
the
hires.
speaker, and now he's on Fox fighting.
Traitors. They were traitors. They were extorted. They were bought off. They're
And nobody would have known if Trump wasn't in office. They went full mask off, and Trump speaks the
So
truth.
he hired them to expose him. Is that your stance? He hired the swamp to expose the swamp? Is that the deal?
No, it's the RNC. It's the party. It's the people you elect. Nobody cared. Nobody brought up China, the border.
That's the
Nobody
check.
cared.
Trump fully supported Rona and McCarthy and otherwise. What if it's the party? Why did he keep Rona around? Why did he push for McCarthy? These are the issues. We all know it's known by Roger Stone and beyond.
DeSantis' corner, right? They've left Trump, so now Trump is. Everybody who's going to burn him is gone. They're surrounding everybody else, and you're saying no, trust him now. The people who betrayed you before, they're going to. Now
Steve Daines heads up the NRSC. He has allies throughout the RNC.
So, are you for the law or not? Should he have went after the judge and ignored? Because all these people say, well, "I'm going to obey."
Hang on, we're back.
Well,
we're back. Sorry, hang on.
Were listed, and he had to follow them. That is what it is.
Deep declines for reading and math for 15-year-olds and 13-year-olds. Governor DeSantis, you would eliminate, you said, the Department of Education. But as president, would you still have a responsibility to fix this crisis as we see it?
Absolutely. The decline in education is one of the major reasons why our country is in decline. We need education in this country, not indoctrination in this country. And in Florida, we stood up for what was right. First, we had schools open during COVID, and a lot of the problems that we've seen are because these lockdown states lock their kids out of school for a year and a half. That was wrong. We stood up. I took a lot of fire for that. I was pilloried by the media, but I stood for our kids. And as president, I'll stand for you and your kids as well. But we have to make sure that what our schools are doing is focusing on solid academics. In Florida, we eliminated critical race theory from our K through 12 schools. We eliminated gender ideology from our K through 12 schools. And we have elevated the importance of American civics and teaching our kids about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. As president, I'm going to lead an effort to increase civic understanding and knowledge of our Constitution. We cannot be graduating students that don't have any foundation in what it means to be an American.
Mr. Ramaswamy, Mr. Ramaswamy, hold on, Senator Scott. You've said that the Department of Education, the FBI, the ATF, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the IRS, the Department of Commerce, many of these should not exist.
That's correct.
So to the education question, how would you deal with the crisis?
So look, we have a crisis of achievement. Let's shut down the head of the snake, the Department of Education. Take that $80 billion, put it in the hands of parents across this country. This is the civil rights issue of our time. Allow any parent to choose where they send their kids to school. End the teachers' unions at the local level to allow public schools to compete. And then revive our national identity where every high school senior should have to pass the same civics test that, frankly, every immigrant, including my mother, had to pass in order to become a citizen of this country. And the fact of the matter is, look, there's a part of education policy that also rests with the family. I didn't grow up in money, but you know, the word privilege gets used a lot. Well, you know what? I did have the ultimate privilege of two parents in the house with a focus on educational achievement. And I want every kid to enjoy that. So part of the problem is we also have a federal government that pays single women more not to have a man in the house than to have a man in the house, contributing to an epidemic of fatherlessness. And I think that goes hand in glove with the education crisis as well, because we have to remember education starts with the family, and the nuclear family is the greatest form of governance known to mankind.
Governor Haley has said that biological boys playing in girls' sports is the women's issue of our time. You said that even though you signed a ban on this in North Dakota, that there hadn't been one instance where it was actually needed. Are you saying that you think that too much is made of this issue?
No, I'm saying in North Dakota, we made a priority of protecting women's sports, and we've done that in our state. But I would absolutely do that. But I do think when we start talking about education and we think that we're going to have a federal government one size fits all, we're just completely losing track of the fact that education differs by states. Some school districts are doing a fantastic job, some less so. But the idea that every school district, state, and every teacher is somehow indoctrinating people is just false. You know, when I was building a company from scratch, you know, with small town kids, and we went, you know, grew up in a town of 300, but we built a global company in 132 countries with over 100,000 customers. We listened to those customers. We spent time with them. We talked to them. We did that. And as governor, well, education is one of the biggest part of a state budget. So as a governor, I shadow a student. I don't, the night before I find out the student finds out, I'm going to go to every class with them. I don't sit and lecture school districts how to do it. I go and see the experience. And there's a lot of things that have to change. But what needs to change in education is it's innovation. We're doing it the same way we did it 50 years ago with innovation, not regulation. I would get rid of the Department of Education. I would give block grants to schools, but I'd give them on merit based on who's doing the most innovative. I just got done holding the 7th annual Governor's Conference on Innovation Education. You should see what the people are doing when you cut loose the red tape, get the burden off their back. They care. Teachers in this country, the vast majority of them care about those kids. They're working in low-paying jobs, and they're fighting for those kids and their families.
Governor Haley, you said that this is the women's issue of our time. First, I'll tell you, as you know, as a parent, the one thing you want is for your child to have a better life than you did. And we can talk about all of these things, and there's a lot of crazy woke things happening in schools, but we've got to get these kids reading. If a child can't read by 3rd grade, they're 4 times less likely to graduate high school. So we need to make sure we bring in reading remediation all over this country. We need transparency in the classroom because parents should never have to wonder what's being said or taught to their children in the classroom. Parents need to be deciding which schools their kids go to because they know best. And let's put vocational classes back into the high schools. Let's teach our kids to build things again. When we do that and we allow that innovation, that's when it'll get back. And yes, I will always say I'm going to fight for girls all day long because strong girls become strong women become strong leaders, and biological boys don't belong in the locker rooms of any of our girls. We're going to start the lightning round, and the first question is going to go To you, Vice President. So this is a lightning round of questions, 30-second answers, please. President Biden will be 82 years old on Inauguration Day. Nearly 70% of Americans say that he is too old to serve. Should presidents have to pass a mental and physical test in order to serve, Vice President Pence?
Well, it might be a good idea to have everybody in Washington, D.C. pass a mental and 30 seconds, no. The American people can make those judgments. But let me say, I'm running for president of the United States because we don't need a president who's too old. And we don't need a president who's too young. We need a president who's been there. We need a president who knows how Congress works, how the White House works, how states work. And on this education issue, Martha, I was fighting against No Child Left Behind when Republicans were doubling the Department of Education. I'll also shut down the Federal Department of Education. And when I was governor, we doubled the size of the largest school choice program in America. And we'll give school choice to every family in America when I'm in the White House.
This is a lightning round, Mr. Ramaswamy. I think you were mentioned there. You're 38. You're the youngest on the stage. You've said, and you just said, you want a civics test or public service for those under 25 to be able to vote. So the question is, do you want a mental acuity test for presidents over 75?
I believe in the people of this country to tell the difference between somebody who's an automaton and somebody who's actually a thinking agent in the White House, which we don't have in there today. And I will tell you, I want to address Vice President. I think we do need somebody of a different generation to lead this nation forward. Look at the way I've run this campaign. Going to the south side of Chicago, to Kensington, in the middle of Philadelphia, where traditional Republican candidates don't go. We have an opportunity to build a multi-ethnic working class majority to deliver a landslide. And I think I'm the only candidate in this race, young or old, black or white.
Did it cut out or is it just me?
It cut out for me too.
Well, I got to agree with Vivek on that right there. We need a new generation. I mean, I that's the best thing Vivek has said all night. I mean, we need a new generation.
I don't know. Have you
No
seen
more
this?
8-year-olds. No more geezers.
I mean, you know, he's a little wet behind the ears. I like the guy, but he's deep state. You look deep into his background. I don't trust him. He's smart.
I think we found the first thing we agree on. I think I found the first thing I agree with Doc on. Glad to hear you. Yeah, Vivek is deep state to the extreme, but you know,
just like DeSantis is. By the way, I did a deep dive.
No, he's not. No, he's not.
Offering computer science.
Look at my Substack on DeSantis too.
We can compete with China in terms of technology.
Thank you, sir. This is going to go to this is coming to you. We're trying to do a quick round of different topics here. So, Senator Scott, faith is on decline in this country. You talked about it a little bit before tonight. So is there a role for a president of the United States in changing that? What would you do to change that?
Well, our nation was founded upon the Judeo-Christian values that has made this the greatest nation on God's green earth. I'm a big believer in Ephesians 3:20 that God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or imagine. Our responsibility should be to model the behavior we want others to follow. On education, the only way we change education in this nation is to break the backs of the teachers' unions. They are standing in the doorhouse of our kids, locking them into failing schools and locking them out of the greatest future they could have.
As President, Governor DeSantis, would you support some mandatory military service for all Americans?
I think it should be voluntary. I'm somebody that volunteered to serve, inspired by September 11th, and I deployed to Iraq alongside U.S. Navy SEALs in places like Fallujah, Ramadi. And it's something that I think has taught me, you know, when you go in that type of environment, anything you have, your personal agenda, you check it at the door. You go there and it's about focusing on the mission above all else. And guys come together and they get it done. And that's how I would view being the president of the United States. It's not about me. It's not about all these other side issues. My sole focus will be on your future and reversing this country's decline.
Okay, now for something a little out of this world, and this is for you, Governor Christie. Do you believe that the recent spike in UFO encounters
I get the UFO question.
Yeah, you do.
Come on,
There
man.
you go. No, but okay, we've been hearing a lot of testimony in Congress, and people are taking this a lot more seriously. And we're hearing that, there are things going on that people aren't aware of. So if you were president, Governor Christie, would you level with the American people about what the government knows about these possible
Look,
encounters?
Martha, and especially coming from a woman from New Jersey, I think it's horrible that just because I'm from New Jersey, you asked me about unidentified flying objects and Martians. We're different, but we're not that different. Look, of course, the job of the President of the United States is to level with the American people about everything. The job of the President of the United States is to stand for truth. The job of the President of the United States is to be a role model for our children and our grandchildren. And so whether it was UFOs or this problem of education, and Tim's right, by the way, and I started this in 2010 by going right after the teachers unions in New Jersey and drove them down to an all-time low popularity rating because they were putting themselves before our kids. That is the biggest threat to our country, not UFOs.
Okay. Well, coming up, we've got closing arguments plus right after the debate. Hannity is live from the spin room right here in the Fiserv Forum with reaction from all the candidates as soon as they step off the stage. We'll be back after this.
Sorry about that. My phone went into coma for about 30 seconds there, but we're back.
That's all right, Justin. Well, as I was finishing my thought before, we got these, we definitely need a new generation. Like somebody that's got small kids is going to care a lot more about the future for those kids than a guy whose great grandkids are that age. We had this this time where these guys that are 80 plus years old, they had their shot. Now it's time for a new generation to come up. And, Vivek was the one that brought this up, but an older generation, these guys, they, a lot of these guys are the reason why we are where we are, the Joe Bidens, the Donald Trumps, the Nancy Pelosi's and the, who's that senator from California that can barely walk, it's really time to pass the torch to have a new, vibrant, energetic generation to come in. And I guess with the teachers unions, I wish Ron DeSantis had brought this up. I wish he had brought up how he just passed a new law to put some of the strongest restrictions on the teachers unions here to audit them and took them on over the forced masking of kids and took on these school boards. He excelled at that.
Thanks, Chris. Hey, real quick. So if we're talking about Governor DeSantis, Gen X, Vivek is a millennial, I believe. What do you guys think? Are we done with the boomers, or do we still have something to squeeze out of them?
You're a boomer. It's okay. You can stick around.
No, come on. I'm 71. I'm Gen X. I'm total Gen X.
Here's something I can just want to add to that. It's like you have to look at the flip side of that too. If you've got somebody who's young and they have young kids, they've got substantial amount of their life ahead of them. They are more susceptible to the pressure that the deep state can bring against them. They're more susceptible to the pressures to
What's your evidence for that?
What I'm just saying is, look, what's the evidence for that? Look, what do you think? Do you think that they're not going to go after whoever the Republican nominee is the way that they're doing it right now after Donald Trump? They're going to bring the full pressure that they can against him, the full weaponization of government agencies. And I think that in some ways, you have to admit that somebody who is later on in their life has a greater ability to withstand that type of pressure because they're not.
What happened with COVID?
Have you seen Trump lately? His face is melting. He's like,
I don't want to go into the health thing. I don't think the health thing is necessarily helpful because I don't see any.
I didn't specify any one individual.
They want Trump in jail or dead. Keep going, Chris.
There are positives for youth, but I'm not saying it's a panacea. I'm not saying I live in California. Do I like Feinstein? No. Do I want her gone? Is she competent? No. But that doesn't mean that it's like, oh, we got to have the under 40s, the under 50s are the only people qualified to lead the country. No, they're in a different space than somebody who might be able to lead competently and not be as vulnerable to pressure.
Brick, one of the classifications for, is it intermediate scrutiny, prodigal, not strict scrutiny, is age, right? Ageism is in here and it's big time.
I like
Trump is
Doc. I don't
as
want to
competent or more
Oh, sorry, I
competent
can't
than
hear
any
Doc
other
on
candidate
this.
in that
Sorry, go
state.
ahead, Doc. Let me know when he's finished.
Yeah, I think
Go
it's
ahead.
fine.
Go
Oh,
ahead,
no
Heather.
worries. Okay,
They're coming back in like 30
I
seconds. Keep going.
yeah, I only caught the last little bit of it once the Trump Tucker thing stopped. But I think it's actually funny. I agree with Chris Christie on one thing. I thought it was pretty well played when he called out Vivek for what he wrote in his book about Donald Trump and January 6th and stuff, because it's quite interesting that Vivek sort of popped up out of nowhere. And I guess in a way does sound like Chat GPT or whatever, where he's saying all the right things that conservatives want to hear. And Chris, don't thumbs up yet, because my second point is where DeSantis was constantly kind of going against Trump and not kind of, and calling people listless vessels. That didn't really work well. And DeSantis has been tanking in the polls. So if you wanted to really appeal to Trump's base and try to steal them, you'd have to actually buddy with Trump. So I wonder if Vivek is like very tactical when it comes to his campaign strategy. I don't know a lot about him, but a thread Doc put out recently was pretty informative, and it brought up things like his business ties to the mRNA vaccines and big pharma and some certain stuff, like he was a part of the World Economic Forum, and he claims he sued them and like was having his name scrubbed and that he wasn't a part of it and stuff. But anyone can one, claim they're filing a lawsuit, and two, spend $50 and file it just for the sake of a political talking point. It really matters what's the outcome of that lawsuit. And so I think that's all a bunch of BS. So I question.
American adults said they were extremely proud
So.
to be an American.
Sorry, we're coming back.
That number has now plummeted.
Good point,
to
Heather.
just 39%. In his pitch to get to the Oval Office, President Reagan called America the shining city on a hill, a beacon of hope and optimism.
So in your closing statement tonight, please tell American voters why you are the person who can inspire this nation to a better day. These are 45 seconds, and we begin with Governor Burgum.
I understand why America's hurting. Biden's inflation is choking us. I grew up in a small town. My dad died when I was a freshman in high school. My mom, widow of three, went back to work. Every job I had growing up was one where I took a shower at the end of the day, not at the beginning of the day. Our cities are less safe because of the fentanyl pouring into this country. Our economy is being crushed by Biden's energy policies, which are raising the cost of every product you buy, not just the gasoline at the pump. One thing that I'll do as president, I'll secure the border. I'll get this economy sprinting, not crawling like it is right now. And I would say that other thing is for sure, when I'm on a horseback in the Badlands of North Dakota, it looks like the horizon is just limitless. And when you can almost see beyond that horizon, you can see that this great country, our future is unlimited. But we've got to focus on innovation, not regulation. We've got to cut the red tape. We got to drive ourselves forward. The way we win the Cold War with China is by growing our economy and through innovation. And as president, I will bring out the best of America. I will improve every American life.
Well, we hope you're back on your horse soon, Governor.
Governor Hutchinson?
Our nation is in trouble, and it's in trouble because of failed leadership. And the solution is not 4 more years of Joseph Biden. The solution is not 4 more years of Donald Trump. The solution is new leadership that can bring bold ideas to America and to bring out the best of America. A president's number one responsibility is to bring out the best of our people. That's what Ronald Reagan did. And he did it with optimism and hope for our country, with consistent conservatism. That's exactly what I bring. As president, I'll bring out the best of America in terms of individual responsibility, building our economy, in terms of securing our border, enforcing the rule of law. I'll bring out the best of America in terms of our national character, our faith, and our hope for the future. Join in this fight, asa2024.com.
Thank you. Senator Scott.
Thank you. I was a disillusioned young man growing up in a single-parent household, mired in poverty. I wondered if the American dream was real for a kid like me. I can stand before you today and say the dream is alive, it is well, and it is healthy. I had the good fortune of a mom who worked 16-hour days, making sure we have food on our tables. She taught me that if you're able-bodied in America, you work. If you take out a loan, you pay it back. If you commit a violent crime, you go to jail. And if God made you a man, you play sports against men. I'm Tim Scott. I'm asking you for your vote. And if you're in Iowa, I'm asking you to caucus for me. You can go to votetimscott.com for more information or to make a contribution.
Governor Christie.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Martha. Look, everybody on this stage wants to be the next president of the United States. And the only way that's going to happen is if we beat Joe Biden. I'm the only one on this stage who's ever beaten the Democratic incumbent in an election. I did it in a deep blue state, being outspent 3-1. Beating a Democratic incumbent is not easy. The last Democratic incumbent president who was defeated was Jimmy Carter. And he was defeated by a conservative governor from a blue state who knew how to get results, who stood for the truth, who cared about accountability, and stood strong and hard against waste. Those are the very things that I did in my 8 years as governor of New Jersey, and it's exactly what I'll do as president of the United States. Believe me, the Democrats want some other nominee who's never beaten the Democratic incumbent. I'm the one who can win this race, and if you give me the chance, I will restore our country by winning it.
Thank you. Governor Haley. Several weeks ago, I dropped my husband, Michael, a combat veteran from Afghanistan, off at 4 a.m. for another year-long deployment. I watched him and 230 soldiers pick up their 2 duffel bags of belongings to go to a country they had never been, all in the name of protecting America. If they are willing to protect us from there, we should be willing to fight for America here. I will beat Joe Biden, and he knows that. I will strengthen our economy, and we'll bring this inflation down. We will put transparency in the classroom. We will secure our borders. We will have the backs of our law enforcement, and we will make sure we have a strong national security. And once again, we will make sure we have an America that is strong and proud. We have a country to save. Join us. Go to NikkiHaley.com, and let's get it done.
Vice President Pence.
Thank you, Brad and Martha, for this evening. It's an honor to be here. Joe Biden has weakened America at home and abroad. The disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, their war on energy, runaway spending that launched the worst inflation in 40 years, a crisis at our southern border, an assault on our values and liberties, and the American people have had enough. But I know we can bring it back. But different times call for different leadership. The Republican Party owes the American people a choice. Proven leadership at the national level that knows how to move a conservative agenda forward. We proved in the Trump-Pence years you can turn this country around faster than you can imagine. And I have faith we will again. Because I have faith in the American people. A good, decent, hardworking, faith-filled, idealistic people of this country. And I have faith that God is not done with America yet. And if we will renew our faith in one another and renew our faith in Him who has ever guided this nation since we arrived on these wilderness shores, I know the best days for the greatest nation on earth are yet to come.
Thank you. Mr. Ramaswamy.
I was born in 1985, and I grew up into a generation where we were taught to celebrate our diversity and our differences so much that we forgot all of the ways we are really just the same as Americans, bound by a common set of ideals that set this nation into motion in 1776. And this is our moment to revive those common ideals. God is real. There are 2 genders. Fossil fuels are a requirement for human prosperity. Reverse racism is racism. An open border is not a border. Parents determine the education of their children. The nuclear family is the greatest form of governance known to man. Capitalism lifts us up from poverty. There are 3 branches of government, not 4. And the U.S. Constitution, it is the longest guarantor of freedom in human history. That is what won us the American Revolution. That is what will win us the revolution of 2024. Thanks for letting me introduce myself tonight. Thank you.
Governor DeSantis. Governor?
This is our time for choosing. We will send Joe Biden back to his basement and we will reverse the decline of this country. I'm a blue collar kid. I work minimum wage jobs to be able to make ends meet. I understand the importance of the American dream, and I know how that slipped away from so many millions of Americans. We'll restore it. I'm a veteran who served in Iraq. I know what it means to put service above self. I'm also a dad and a husband to 6, 5, and 3-year-old. I understand the importance of protecting parents' rights and the well-being of our children. In Florida, we showed it could be done. I made promises and I delivered on all of those promises. 2024 is make or break. We're not getting a mulligan, no excuses. I will get the job done. And as your president, I will not let you down. God bless you all.
Well, we want to say thank you. Thank you to all the candidates on the stage tonight, and thank you to Milwaukee.
Thank you, everybody. We will see you on the campaign trail from debates to.
There it is. That's the end. There you go.
Let's go to Tim. Tim, I know you're a big DeSantis fan. Let's see what your thoughts are in terms of this debate.
Yeah. Thank you guys for letting me up on the stage tonight. Watched the entire debate. I was listen, for what it was, I was impressed. It's not the debate that we deserve. We deserve the debate between DeSantis and Trump. So we got shortchanged. Everybody in this space, all 10,000 plus of you got gypped by Donald Trump. He should have been there. It's the only time that we are going to get to litigate within the party what happened during COVID when our rights were taken away, when we had lockdowns, when we had mandates and things like that. It's the only time that you and I as voters would have had a chance to have that man answer our questions. He ran from us. So
you should watch the Tucker interview. They brought it up.
The Tucker interview. That's not what I'm talking about, and that's disrespectful to us as voters. He should have stood up there.
JV squad. When they whittled it down, maybe we'll debate.
He should have
stood up
the
JV.
He should have stood up there on the stage and answered questions, but he's a scared woman at this point. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he shook Kim Jong-un's hand.
So
he's scared of Chris. Yeah, I would be scared too. The stage may break.
For what it was,
of course he's scared.
For what it was, it was a great debate. DeSantis did his thing.
It was boring, Tim. Everyone wanted to listen to Trump. No one wanted to listen to them. It was so boring. That's why Trump probably didn't go there.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You're saying that nobody wants to listen to that, but we have 10,000 plus people.
Yeah,
in
but
this
77
space
million
on Twitter.
people. Yeah, we're
Wait a minute.
because they cut the
80 plus million people have viewed that video today.
Be respectful. Don't speak over me.
I mean,
Mario gets 10,000.
So I mean, like, how many people watched the Tucker video? It's like on 80 million, and without exaggeration, I actually think if we'd actually streamed Trump, I think we would have got 8,000.
You don't believe that? That's not 80. So let me break down the way that these video views work.
Numbers, like, everybody knows that, bro. Come on.
No, it's video views, not people.
Let me respond to that.
Just in your thing is making noise.
Let me respond to that really quickly, because I mean, you guys are don't
Nobody
lie
cares
to the people. As soon as you click on one of those videos, it counts as a view. And that's not 80 million people. I've clicked on that video multiple times throughout this debate just to kind of skim
We
through,
appreciate you,
and I
Tim.
haven't watched that video. I'm sorry?
I said we appreciate you.
But Tim, you're not totally not saying.
I mean, so come on, like,
you're
not
saying DeSantis will get the same numbers
Impossible.
as Trump.
Even if 10% of the people just watch that video, only 10%, they still got more views than whatever this bullshit debate got, bro. It was boring.
It's not even 10. It's not even 10%.
It's probably
Do you think people sat there for the entire 2 hours of the debate in front of their TV?
Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example. I mean, I see you guys are scared of what I have to say, but I'm going to speak anyway. Let me give you an example. I've got 12,000 followers on
Congratulations.
Twitter. Laura Loomer has almost 500,000. How is it that I got paid more money than she did? Because
what's that got to do with anything?
Because you guys have bots.
Bro, she's getting censored while you get to say
because you guys have bots.
No.
All your followers end with 1,000 numbers. You guys have bots.
Look,
then
how come
Trump has 480,000? That's why you guys are up in arms.
Hold on, guys. one at a time. Let's not have to rehash the 2020 inaugural crowd discussion here. I think there are valid points on both sides. Let me go to Doc real quick. Doc, it seemed like it was I think a pretty pertinent debate. There was lots of good fireworks. Vivek obviously was a target of things. I think DeSantis acquitted himself well. I think Trump was definitely missed, and now people can go and replay. We'll probably play a couple clips for you guys here shortly of the Trump debate. But give me your just overall take on the debate there. Sorry, I got to unmute people first. Doc, you there?
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that a question to me?
Yeah. Just go ahead. Tell me just generally, do you think it was worth it?
For Tucker and Trump?
No, for the debate on the GOP side.
It's just a shit show. You know, they what they did to Vivek is what they would have done to Trump. Everyone would have focused right on Trump. You know, they go to the guy at the top of the polls. And for the VP debate tonight, you know, Vivek was top of the polls. I thought Christie's slam on him as a skinny chat GPT, you know, that was pre-written by somebody a lot more intelligent than Chris Christie. And that just points out, ironically, how fat he still is, you know, even after having a lap band surgery and overdosing on Ozempic, you know, the last week. So look, I'm it's not going to change anybody's opinion, right? Tim might be happy. DeSantis to me looks sort of robotic, very practiced, and we know that he does practice and has practiced. We've seen those videos from 2018 where you I can't. How do I do this and not piss off the MAGA people? Well, guess what, Tim? He can't and he won't, and that's why his numbers have been dropping from the moment he declared. Thanks.
The betting markets are up on DeSantis right now. They're up to like 5 cents plus. I think.
Yeah,
Vivek
Soros just dumped about $5 million in the market. So yeah, we can
okay,
that.
All right.
Yeah,
was he trying to get his little comrade, his little comrade Vivek up there?
When it came to the Hillary Clinton election, man, these polls can't be trusted.
No, there weren't a lot of things that were accurate about the polls going into that. So it's so far out. I don't take any sort of debate in this.
Yeah, but if I could say something real quick, look, let's be honest.
We got some hands up. Go ahead.
One thing that I'll say real quick is that, look, Donald Trump, for what it was worth, the interview was fantastic with Tucker Carlson. It was clean. He answered very hard-hitting questions. He answered questions that I wanted to know about what he thought about a lot of stuff, and he backed it up. And it was very, very natural. It felt very presidential. These debate, man, it was people who got 1%, 2%, 0%, as Trump said it himself in the interview. And they're battling over who can be VP. None of these guys were presidential this evening. None of them answered anything. And when they were asked questions, they looped it around and answered with whatever they wanted to do. They didn't even answer the questions half the time what they were being asked.
That's what you do in a debate.
I know, but it was
but Ryan, one of the things you're saying makes real sense to me, because one of the candidates said something about, after 9/11, the war on terror, and I literally thought, are they really believing that the American public are going to believe this? Like, seriously, are you going back on that foreign policy from 20 years ago? Oh, because of 9/11 and the war on terror, we've got to protect our country.
Yeah, he talked about how he joined the military after 9/11 because of his patriotism for that issue there.
No, that's not what it was. It was something else that was said, and I'll actually find the clip of it. But the thing is, like, gone is the politics of 20 years ago, and these all sounded like politicians from 20 years ago. They don't sound like somebody from the present day, and this is what Ryan's trying to say. And I completely agree with you.
They didn't answer any
Well, you live in London. Why are you commenting on our elections in America? We fought a war to be
still stuck on the Board of Education.
Well, why I'm commenting on your elections in America is because America actually interferes in everybody else's country, and when they stop doing that, I'll stop commenting. My government works with your government hand in glove.
Let's go to a new voice here. I see Tim had his hand up. Tim, cool, are you there?
I mean, Tim's talked for like good 20 minutes.
Has he? Okay, I may have missed that. Sorry.
Yeah, let's go to Prodigal.
Listen, Prodigal, go ahead.
I see Prodigal there. He's itching to get in.
I agree with the speakers. I don't think this was a game changer. I thought DeSantis didn't do bad. I thought Christie had a couple of moments. Like, I don't disagree in regards to empowering, U.S. attorneys to do the job that local DAs won't. I mean, the only thing is, like somebody said before, for them, the left has gone full mask off. I mean, they're coming after everybody. They're in prison. I mean, to see the right basically rehashing the same stuff is just, it shows that they don't understand the times we're in. And listen, I'll give DeSantis credit. I assume somebody said, hey, listen, you got to have some passion in the voice. but all he did was yell, which is, you got to have more than one tone, Ron. You got to have multiple tones so people see you actually have empathy and can understand what they're going through. He just had a yelling tone. I think he did all right, but it's not moving the needle.
Let's go to Bricksuit. Bricksuit, go ahead. And then we'll go to Tim.
Yeah, I think that coming into this, I think that the big winner still tonight is Donald Trump. He's still the front runner. He's still the topic that really was discussed more than anything else in the debate. I thought the one segment where they're saying if he's, the question was, I believe, if he's indicted, if he's convicted, would you still support him? And then Vivek is the first person to raise his hand. They all signed this pledge, of course. And then other candidates are looking around like, what are the other people doing? I don't see that as leadership. I don't see like being the last person on the stage to raise your hand to a very simple question as being leadership when you're looking around to see what the other people on the stage are doing. I thought that was a very bad look for the candidates who raised their hand last. And, I think that I didn't really see any really huge breakout here. I think Vivek really has been gaining lately, and I did not see him stumble. And I think that DeSantis needed really more kind of a knockout blow. Did he comport himself well? I will say that in certain areas he did, but I don't think that it's a game changer for him. I don't think it reverses his decline, and I don't know how long it'll be until his next reboot.
Tim, go ahead. Tim.
Yeah, I don't know what debate Bricksuit was watching respectfully. They barely spoke about Trump, so I was actually very pleased by that because he's a non-issue right now in the debate. In addition to that, Vivek stumbled quite a bit. Like he looked pretty terrible on that debate stage. As far as DeSantis is concerned, he's playing to one audience and one audience only, and that's Iowa. And I think he played well in Iowa. He defended his pro-life credentials, which, Trump can't really, attack him on that. He defended, his record as far as dealing with crime in Florida. I think he did really well in Iowa. So if DeSantis wins Iowa, he wins the race as far as I'm concerned. If he wins Iowa, he wins the race. This is Hillary Obama all over again. I think people are just waiting right now. You have over 50% of the Republican electorate that said they can change and they can move to somebody else. They're waiting to see if he can beat Trump in Iowa. I think he did well for himself tonight in Iowa.
Let me go to Jack. Jack, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Here's the problem with tonight. They all ran for second place, that's for sure. None of them, not a single one of them, drove home what matters to Americans right now. And it's the fact that we cannot afford Biden's economy. Not a one of them drove home how they're going to fix the issues we're facing with inflation, the cost of goods, the cost of fuel. I mean, Vivek did touch on drilling, but that's like, echoing President Trump. None of them had an original plan on how they're going to address the issues that the average everyday American is facing. It's been insider baseball debate. That's all I saw from it. Yes, some of them made me laugh. Some of them had, some good points here and there. But my overall thought is I enjoyed the Tucker Trump interview more so than the debate because they never talked about the things that matter to the people that I ran to represent. And that's how they're going to feed their families and pay their bills.
The consequences of Trump not being on the debate stage are being felt. I'm looking at some background screenshots of Matt Gaetz. Looks like that could be Jason Miller. I'm not sure. These folks are being denied access to the mixers after the debate for the spin room. So interesting effect. Looks like the RNC is enforcing the rule that if your candidate wasn't on stage, you can't have advocates in the spin room.
And let me go to Chris, because I think Jack spoke about it. Yeah, Chris, go ahead.
All right. Well, thanks for hosting the space, Suleiman and Justin. And it's right. They shouldn't be allowed in the spin room. And I get it. Okay, fine. Tucker's interview with Trump in his little safe space there had 100 billion views. Okay, like
you still supporting free speech there, Chris, you still support free speech?
You don't.
Any particular adherence to the political speech doctrine?
I'm finishing. Okay, so I'm glad that they didn't allow him.
Think about what you're saying, though, Chris.
He talks over me every
It's the
time.
tape
I'm
space.
glad.
One thing, guys. Please let Chris
All
finish.
right, I'm trying to finish up because I got to go.
Chris,
I'm glad that they didn't let him in.
There's some glitch on Twitter, but
all right, I'm glad they didn't let him in the spin room because guess what? If you're gonna run for president, you need to show up in this sense of entitlement that Trump is automatically owed this thing. Look, you heard DeSantis, and he hit on all the right points. If we don't get this right this time, we don't get a mulligan. The fact of the matter is Donald Trump is facing indictments out the butt. Everybody around him is going down. He brings down everybody around him. If we put him up as the nominee, he will lose. And we have
Are you with the Lincoln Project now, or who are you?
We have a layup here. We have a strong, young, energetic candidate that hits on all the right points. He's a military veteran. He's done it here in Florida. He's been successful. It will be a layup if we put DeSantis up against Biden. If we don't and we put up Trump, he will lose. Do you know that they can take Trump's name off the ballot because he's indicted?
No, they can't. Stop lying, you twit.
States could do that. States could do that. If
And
we
you're willing to
don't-
roll the dice with our country on that, Doc. Come on, man.
Right. Okay. Let me just move
I
on
gotta run.
slightly
It's really
now,
sad
guys.
that we have a lot of these grifters that are putting their grift before the sake of our country. And this idea that Trump just is like a king. Look, we don't live in England. We fought a war against them, so we don't have coronations. You got to get in the game. You got to compete. Running and hiding and trying to send Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Greene and these other goofballs in to try to get into the spin room and heckle in the audience. This is child stuff. We don't have time.
Chris, we got your point. We got your point.
You're giving me a headache.
God,
get him away from the microphone.
And Chris's argument is extremely weak. He's like, we don't live in England. Let's talk about America. And yet they were talking about Israel for like good 30 minutes and how they have to be subservient to it. But anyway, let me go
can I just say something, right? Just very quickly. If these were elections, if this was a debate about who's going to become the president of Iceland or Norway or Sweden, nobody would be interested. Why? Because those countries don't have the global influence that the United States of America has. Anybody who thinks that the US presidency election does not have global ramifications is a moron. Right? Everyone has a right to. Chris, I'm not talking to you. If you think I'm talking to you, then fine when I call you a moron. But no, I'm going to finish. I listen to your nonsense. Listen, I listen to your rhetoric, so I'm going to finish what I'm saying, okay? So for anyone to say, oh, stay out of US politics, why are you talking about it? I'm sorry, but the world is talking about it. For as long as my country and yours carry on interfering in other people's businesses, people have a right to talk about who the leader will be, because that leader will be somebody who actually makes either the world a safe place or a dangerous place. The world has never been more safer than under President Trump. DeSantis has signed away the First Amendment rights for Florida, and he went to Iran to sign. Sorry, no, it wasn't Iran. It was Israel, wasn't it? That's right. Sorry, got the wrong country. He went to Israel to sign them away. So don't come here and say that DeSantis is going to be safer for the world. I live in the UK. I want a safe world. I want Trump back because Trump didn't start any new wars. I don't want a warmonger in the White House like DeSantis. I'm British. I will have my opinion, and I will talk about it whenever I want to.
How about we go to
Justin, this is important. So I want to go to
I was going to play a Trump clip. Let me know when you guys want to.
Yeah. I've got go ahead, Justin. That's actually what I wanted to move to see.
Yeah. Okay. This one is on.
The clips are in the nest. So if anyone wants to follow, the clips are on the nest. We're going to continue, Justin.
All right. Here, this is a clip. I think it's about a minute and a half. Let's listen to it here.
Question: if you're elected president again, what's your number one priority? When you ran last time, you said I will build a wall. This time, your bottom line top promise to the country.
So you can do numerous things at the same time.
Of course.
But let's say number one is a border and taking hundreds of thousands of criminals that have been allowed into our country and getting them out and bringing them back to their country, Guatemala. By the way, not only the 4 countries that we think of as neighbors, all over the world. Last month, we had 149 countries represented. Think of it. We had 149 countries represented, Tucker, from places that many people never even heard of, coming into our country. And they're coming in from mental institutions, and they're coming in from prisons. They're emptying out their prisons all over South America. They're emptying out their mental institutions. Terrorists are pouring into our country. We have no idea. I had the strongest border in the history of our country, and I built almost 500 miles of wall. You know, they like to say, oh, was it less? No, I built 500 miles. In fact, if you check with the authorities on the border, we built almost 500 miles of wall. And I had another 200 that I was going to build. You know, it's like water, it seeks.
He was
And we're
going
going to
to
build
do it.
another 200. We built it. It was all set to go. All they had to do was install it. It would have taken 3 weeks. And that's when I found out. I said, I think these people actually want open borders. The first thing I would do would be I would seal up the border good and tight, except for people that want to come in legally.
There you go. Comments?
So the first thing he would do is the thing that he promised.
Guys, Chris and Tim, please, guys. I know you guys are desperate to jump in every few seconds, but we will get to you. We're getting both sides in. Let's go to Prodigal first. Prodigal, what do you think on Trump's position that this is the most important issue? Or not even, he said they were all equally important. You can't do one thing at a time, but he said that this would probably shade it. But anyway, what's your thoughts, Prodigal?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that it's probably one of the most important in addition to Ukraine. But I think the funniest thing is watching the DeSantis supporters turn to MSNBC. I mean, they love News Corp. I mean, the same corporation that fired Tucker for no reason and silenced him from having the head of Capitol Police basically show either gross negligence or complicity in what occurred on January 6th. I mean, you could see Tim laughing. There's innocent people in jail. It came out earlier in the week in the Gateway Pundit. They're keeping a guy in the closet, right? And these people are laughing. So to see them champion News Corp when their own deposition showed Paul Ryan and Rupert Murdoch were working to push DeSantis, I mean, they could laugh, but it's well documented. So I mean, it's actually sad because I like DeSantis, but it's sad to see basically their position turn to, you know, MSNBC, and they forget about, you know, the DOJ and FBI had already launched investigations that the guy was hamstring across the way with the judges. But you know, it's fine because there is no loyalty. I mean, DeSantis doesn't exist without Trump. I'm glad Trump was allowed to permeate the American consciousness that now all the issues that he was telling America to worry about, now these people who were in politics way before him seem to care about it. And they can laugh like Tim. I mean, I know he was a Bernie, BLM, Antifa, Summer of Love guy, but you know, that's the kind of you know, supporter that DeSantis attracts, and that's a good thing.
Let me go to,
Okay. Can I respond, please?
Yeah, I was
Thank
going to
you
go.
so much.
Go ahead, Tim.
Appreciate it. So, you know, what's funny to me is that he says the first thing I'm going to do when I get into office is the thing that you hired me to do last time that I didn't complete. So that's funny by itself.
Yeah, I mean, DeSantis loved Ryan.
I mean, can I finish
Paul
talking
Ryan was
though?
the head
Can
of
I
the,
finish
the
talking?
Let
Did
him
I interrupt
finish.
him?
Let him finish. He's
Did
good.
Yeah, I appreciate that. My man did not finish the job that we hired him to do last time. I wouldn't hire a plumber again if he the doggone work site without finishing the job. So he didn't finish the job that we hired him to do. In addition to that, you're talking about all these people in jail, and he didn't pardon anyone, right?
That would have been
He
added to the charges if you actually read the referral from Congress. They said Amy Comfort. Well, it's clear you're talking about things you don't understand. But continue.
No, he could have pardoned them. He could have pardoned them. Jimmy Carter pardoned
They're
all
pointing
them.
to his words to try to say he was
given them a
complicit. He
blanket
can
pardon.
pardon them when
Listen, at the end of the day, he didn't pardon these people. He led them straight to prison. Everything he touches turns doo-doo. And why would we go ahead and do it again? And my question to the Trump supporters in the room is like, I'm trying to understand why. Given everything that we know about the electorate rejecting him, why would you continue to gamble with our country on this? Does he make you feel like a man? Is that what it is? Like, do you need this 80-year-old man to make you
Don't
feel
be a
like
racist,
Nixon
Tim.
and Jackson lost. I would have
Not
supported
cool.
Andrew Jackson. I would support Nixon.
I mean, at the
And
end of the day,
when you lose, you stay down. That's you. Other
you're
people get back
LARPing.
up.
You're at the end of the day, you're LARPing and you're living vicariously through
LARPing.
this.
You're the guy
this
who's the communist
geriatric.
BLM guy who supports DeSantis.
You're
the best
LARPing
way
and you're
to tell who
living.
the campaign
Why,
attracts. You're a
why,
Bernie guy. You probably like
see, here,
when
to the
Vivek said
host,
revolution.
you know,
Revolution.
like I didn't interrupt this guy and I let him talk, and you're allowing.
Yeah, but you're
him to
talking
over-
nonsense, nonstop, and
you're
someone is
allowing-
going to
you're
jump on
allowing
you when
people
you're
to
so
overtalk me,
silly.
All right, guys, you keep jumping in with each other. What it is
Did we lose everybody? What happened there?
And I muted everyone because you have to do that when said DeSantis Trump debate. I told you guys, I give you the intro. This is
you called it.
Honestly, this is the most fiery debate on Twitter. Like, it beats transgender, feminism, Ukraine, Russia war. Anyways, Dr. Gorka, thanks for joining us. What did you think about the two big events? You had the.
Can I land my plane though? Can I land my plane? I mean, I feel like
let me go, Dr. Gorka.
No, we've heard all those talking points, Tim.
It's
all right.
We'll come back to
got a couple DeSantis guys in here and you cut me off.
Guys, Tim, please. Then everyone just jumps again. I will come back to you guys again. Let me go to Dr. Gorka. Dr. Gorka, we had two big events. We had the GOP debate without Donald Trump, and then we had the Tucker Carlson Donald Trump debate, which already has, I think, almost 90 million views. It's about to beat the Tate Tucker viewership. It's going to break all viewership records. What's your thoughts on what you saw today?
Well, I literally just got off an interview with British media, and I just told them the same thing. I said, President Trump won a debate that he wasn't even there for, so it's absolutely hilarious. I mean, and genius that he did it with Tucker, that dropped it just before the debate on Fox even started. A debate which, to quote somebody who was on my radio show last week, said, "Why would you go to a debate when everybody else has to wear name tags?" I mean, just sheer bloody genius. As to the debate itself, I don't know about you guys, but it started off so boring. I went back to watch the Tucker interview. Then, once I'd done that, I went back to the debate, and then it got spicy. And the only person who successfully differentiated himself from the rest of the career politicians and the hackneyed talking points when I was governor, blah, 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 and, Jesus Christ, my savior. I mean, really, I'm a Christian, but, get me a bucket, Mike Pence. I mean, really. I mean, it's
You ain't a Christian, buddy.
Don't disrespect Jesus in this space, my man. Like,
you ain't a Christian, Sebastian.
Go fuck
hey,
yourself.
let me just say
Go
something.
fuck
Don't
yourself.
disrespect Jesus.
You don't get
man.
to
I'll
tell
call
me
you to
what
the
I
carpet
am.
for
So
that, my
you
man.
shut up, okay? You just
I
shut
will
up.
call you to the carpet for that,
So
man.
you
You got a problem with Christians?
You
You have
just
a
shut
problem
up,
with Christians?
okay? You
Do
go
you have a
screw
problem with
yourself.
Christians,
Go screw
Sebastian?
yourself, okay?
Yeah,
Suleiman,
do you have a problem
did
with
you ask me a
Christians? I
question?
dare you to say it right now.
You asked me a question.
Guys,
I dare you. I'm calling you.
Hold on, guys. Come on.
This is getting crazy. Please let somebody finish, and then we will go to the next person.
Yo,
Sorry.
he can stop disrespecting people's religions, though. You know what I'm saying?
He was saying Pence is hypocritical. Pence never met a war he
Bingo.
didn't like. You can call yourself a Christian all you want, but if all you bring is death and destruction, I don't care what you call yourself. But you might not understand that. Read some more books.
No, in the low IQ, it's just low IQ. Just let me finish my point. So the virtue signaling to the evangelicals was just so blatant. But the person that really differentiated himself was Vivek, and the smackdown for Christie was just a delight to behold. He's the only guy who's got any chance of being in a cabinet of the second Trump administration. He's playing the long game. He had that zinger against him from Haley, but it was in an area that he has no background in, which is foreign policy. So that's his one understandable weakness. But at the end of the day, it was just hackneyed establishment GOP talking points. One guy who's not a politician, who's in the mold of President Trump. So yeah, I mean, if there's a winner on the stage, I think it's Vivek, and President Trump played it beautifully.
I never would have
Jumbotron,
expected you'd say that, Sebastian. I never would have expected you'd say
Oh my
Vivek
gosh.
won. That you totally caught me off guard with that.
Look at the Jumbotron. We posted that this morning. You guys are not original.
Tim, go ahead.
I mean, if you look at the Jumbotron, we posted that this morning from Max Nordo. We knew you guys would be saying the same garbage, the same, oh, Trump won it by not showing up and Vivek did well. Like, we understand the game. But what I do understand is that people in Iowa who are going to decide this primary are not looking at it through the eyes of Sebastian Gorka. When Sebastian gets in here and he's
no, you know what the people of Iowa are doing, right? Because you speak for them, buddy, right?
Listen, I'm talking right now. I'm talking right now. Listen, Bentley, I'm talking right now. Okay.
Pathetic joke.
The people in Iowa who are evangelicals and who are Christians are not going to take.
It's pronounced
evangelical,
not
to a Trump surrogate coming in here using God's name in
That's
vain.
Ebonics.
Right?
That's Ebonics, Sebastian.
Right.
Oh, sorry. Is he being cool? Sorry.
Yeah. So listen, I think that he's playing to one audience. DeSantis is playing to one audience, and he did well. But what I will ask again, the Trump people in here, is how does it feel to support a coward? You can spin it any way you want.
Why would a
We don't support DeSantis. We do not support DeSantis.
Why would they sit at the kiddie table? The adults for Thanksgiving get the grown-up table. The kiddies get the kiddie table.
Today. See, you see how they
I
talk
think the
over me?
cowardly thing to do
Always
is
been at
to
the
look
kiddie
around the
table.
room and raise your
They are
hand
scared.
based on other
And I
people.
caught
Oh,
the
sorry,
little-
that
I
was
caught
the
the
most
little-
important
I caught
thing
the
of the
little
night.
Ebonics
The
thing that
most
you threw out
important
there
thing
too.
that
So now you
DeSantis
racist as
had to
well.
look
He didn't
around.
say
Now
that.
you
Somebody
racist
else
as
did.
well.
But you put
What's
it out
wrong with
there.
Ebonics?
Read a book.
All right, guys, we had too many people talking. Tara, you had something you wanted to say in terms of raising the hand. Do you want to make a point?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I think the cowardly thing to do is to wait to raise your hand to see if the audience applauses and look around at your, constituents and then follow suit. That's the cowardly thing to do. We need someone who isn't afraid to stand up first, raise their hand first, and even if they're the only one raising their hand, the cowardly thing to do is to wait for everyone to go before you and then say, oh yeah, I want to be like everyone else.
The
And that's
cowardly
what
thing to do is to
DeSantis
hand the
did.
country over to Dr. Fauci because you're scared of what would happen if you
Right,
fired Dr.
DeSantis did
Fauci.
that
Well, then
when
why
he
didn't
That's
he
the
locked down
follow
cowardly thing to
Dr.
do.
Fauci's advice?
If
He
you
closed
command the
down
United
Florida.
States military,
He
but
closed
you're scared
nursing
of an
homes.
80-year-old
He killed
doctor,
100-year-old
I don't think
soldiers
you
with a
I don't think Tim
vaccine.
knows that.
Got you
He
mad
closed
again.
schools. He closed businesses. He left Disney open though.
Tim,
That
I
was
think
cool.
you should have been on that debate because it's so freaking boring. Seriously, as boring as that debate was.
Well, listen,
Let
you
me
got a
ask a
bunch of
question.
people up
Let me ask
there.
a question here.
Listen, I came in here saying that we did not get the debate that we deserve because Trump is a coward and he ran from the debate with DeSantis. And here's the other reason why Trump didn't stand up
You
on the
can keep
stage.
repeating
I don't
that,
know.
but
I
no
don't
one
know if
believes
his.
it. But
I don't know.
so go ahead and
Can I
say it
ask you a
again.
real question?
I don't know if the
Tim,
congestive heart
Tim,
failure is real for Trump.
Tim, let me ask you a question because I get it. Your position is that Trump should have been there. The people who support Trump, their position is that he shouldn't have been there. But a real question, just from a logical perspective. So ignore that you're a fan of DeSantis, right? So when I saw that stage, there's so many people on there. It's so chaotic. If he was on there, it wouldn't have been him against DeSantis. Let's be clear. You would have got a very small period of time to talk, as DeSantis did, as did many other people. There was bells going off every 20, 30 seconds. You could never explain your point in a detailed manner. So, do you really think that?
Well, it wouldn't have been the same as the debate of
Tim, do you really
2016.
think that
No,
it was?
it would not have been the
Yeah,
same,
please,
and I'm going to tell you why.
get my point.
Let me tell you why it would not have been the same. Two reasons why it wouldn't have been the same, right? Trump has a record now that he would have to answer for. He would have to answer some questions about his record. That's number one. And he would be up on that stage, not against just those people on stage, but against Father Time. I think the contrast between someone who's almost 80 years old and someone who's 44 years old, someone who just does not have it anymore, does not have the stamina
Yeah,
to
but it's
stand
a
up.
6'4"
He does
guy
not have
versus
the
a
stamina.
5'6" guy.
He does not have the
DeSantis would
stamina
not
to
want to
stand
stand
up
next
for
to
2
Trump. He'd be
hours.
terrified of it.
He does not have the stamina to stand up
Trump
for
is
2
not
hours.
6'4", dude.
Let's be
Right, he
real. He's
doesn't have
got
the
heart
stamina.
issues
He
and he
runs a
doesn't have the stamina to
multi-billion-dollar
stand up for 2
business.
hours.
He's fending off 4 witch hunts, and he's running for president. You
He's
honestly,
got
do you
one
believe the
foot in the
stuff you
grave,
say?
one foot on a banana peel,
That,
and
that,
that's the
you
reason
let
hope
why
me
he
that.
didn't
That's
get
the
on
only way
the
DeSantis
debate
could
stage.
win. You wish
I
him
want to ask a
ill,
question
and
real
you
quick.
wish him in prison because that's
Hang
the
on.
only way you guy can win, and that's why you're slimy. That's why the
No, I'm
LGBT
looking at
is slimy.
the life expectancy in this country, man. For a man his size and a man as fat as he is he's not looking great, right? So he's
I thought
not.
we're
He
supposed
can't
to
stand.
discuss the
He
debate,
he
Suleiman.
physically
Yeah, hang
cannot.
on.
Yeah, let's go
Let's
to
come back.
guys,
He
let's go
physically
to
cannot.
I want to ask.
let's go
I
to
want to
Ryan.
ask. Hang on. I
They
want to
don't like
ask
to talk
Dr.
about
Gorka
this.
something. Want to ask Dr. Gorka something. So these clips are going to play. I thought there were some good exchanges. I thought there were some interesting things. But come noon or Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time, there's going to be a mugshot. What impact do you think that's going to have on the election here?
Well, I'll be selling mugs with his mugshot, and he'll be raising tens of millions of dollars. And we'll see what we see after every indictment, that there will be a jump in fundraising and popularity for the president. I predict that right now.
The
When
grift
you see,
continues.
Too
when the
bad none of
regular
that money's
voter,
going to go to the campaign. It's all going to go to his legal fund. Ah.
That's
well,
why we
it-
donate to him.
Grift on,
You
grift
twit.
on,
That's why
brother.
we donate to him, Tim. It's good. I'm sorry. I said twit. I meant Tim. That's why we donate to him, right? So that he can defend himself against a deep state and rhino pukes like you.
You know, you can donate to him from Mar-a-Lago. He doesn't have to be on the campaign trail. Like, he's not going to be president again. So go ahead and donate to him while he's chilling on his couch in Mar-a-Lago.
I just sent him 2
Let the
Bitcoins.
big boys
What a big
actually run
deal.
the country.
2
Okay,
Bitcoins, that would go beyond your limit there on the FEC there.
let's okay, wait, let's go to I want to go to Ryan, but I just want to say, Dr. Gorka, I'm really pleased that you actually were giving interviews to British media, because obviously Britain does have some,
Somebody has to.
Yes,
Where
exactly.
the Brits
Thank
want
you.
Trump for some reason,
Let's
but
go to
here in
Ryan.
America,
Chris, your
we
name's
want
not Ryan. I'm
understanding.
going to Ryan. Go ahead,
Chris,
Ryan.
you always talk, bro. Listen, one thing that Chris said that really bothered me, he goes, people from other countries shouldn't be allowed to have an opinion. Khaleesi said it perfectly.
I did
Our
not say that. I
country-
said they
yes,
shouldn't
you
be
did.
voting.
Yes,
They
you
can't
did. And
vote,
you said
so
it
why does
here.
your
You said
opinion
it
matter?
elsewhere. You guys hate free speech. You said it earlier too. Khaleesi said he signed away the rights to freedom of speech, and you said good. That
No,
scares
I
the
said
hell
I
out
was
of me.
glad he
If
went to
a guy
Israel.
is
I was
willing,
glad he went to Israel.
Chris,
No, you
Chris,
just said something wrong about me. I did not say that he did not sign away
You
free
said
speech.
he
But
did.
I'll tell you what that bill did.
Chris,
It
hold on. Let
created
me finish
enhanced-
my thought
it-
and then come back.
Chris, I thought you had to leave
Oh
like
my
20 minutes
God,
ago.
Chris
Well,
does
you got to
not
let me
shut up.
reply then, because
Chris,
that's not
I wish DeSantis had enough energy as you did, bro. Maybe he'd get a thought out clearly, or maybe change his tone of voice. He's so damn boring. Maybe you should run it as this body double, man.
That's
Put on
all you
20
guys
pounds,
got is that he's
lose a few
boring,
inches,
but the
and then
man
say
is
it's just like
effective.
name calling
The
and stuff
man
like
is
that.
no,
effective.
no, it's
The
not name
bill.
calling, Chris, because you don't
Yo,
let people
talk to me
finish.
about his record. Talk to me
No,
about
let
his
me
record.
finish.
Guys,
Let me,
listen, everyone's had a chance to speak. Ryan's waited very
yeah,
patiently. Let Ryan speak.
you guys get a reply on everyone. Look, the fact that he's willing to sign away our rights as Americans for the rights of a foreign country, and then you come in here and you have the guts to say that people from foreign countries don't have the right to have an opinion.
Nah, he did
That
not
guy's
sign
signing our
anything
rights away
away
for
like
foreign
that.
countries,
You're
bro, and
not.
people who aren't
You're
here.
lying about
Look,
it. He didn't.
you can spin it just like everything else that you spin, and that's
He
fine. Look, I'm
signed.
not
He
here to
signed
defend
a
Trump,
law
but I'm just
that
saying
made
that
it
look, the fact that
enhancement. You harass Jewish people. If you harass
what about
Jewish
everybody else?
people,
What about Muslim people? What about Christians?
no,
We
it's
don't care about that.
all religions.
What about
Chris,
black
I've
people?
read
All
the
religions.
bill. Chris,
Chris
I've
does
read the bill.
Chris, we
Don't
get
go
it,
there.
bro.
I
I,
have
He's
read it.
happen to agree with him on it.
beholden to his
So
biggest
I'm trying to
donor.
understand
I
what
get
Ryan
it,
is
bro. He has
arguing.
to cock for them, bro.
Ryan, what are you arguing? What are
I'm
you
arguing
arguing?
the fact that Ron DeSantis is willing to sign away our rights as Americans for certain groups of people who are willing to sign a check. He can be bought, and you cannot have someone who can be bought in the White House. I'm sorry.
No, be clear, be precise. What are you saying? What did he do? How did he sign away our rights as Americans?
Okay, Ryan's glitched. Let's go to Brick. Brick, go ahead.
Yeah, you can't answer that because it didn't
No,
happen.
you can. I'll bring it back up in a second, but go ahead, Brick.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask, he's had a lot of time to talk, so maybe keep the answer short, Tim, but I do want to answer this question. I saw a clip that Raheem posted earlier today that was of a space in which DeSantis supporters were talking about the prospect of President Trump not being the nominee. And for those of you who didn't see it, basically the premise is this, is there was a very distraught woman talking about how we can't let President Trump be the nominee, and that if he is the nominee, I'd rather him just not I would rather us just not have a nominee and let Biden win the White House. Now, my personal philosophy here is that if by some miracle, some fair set of circumstances, President Trump is not the nominee, I'm still going to support the Republican nominee. And when I say fair circumstances, I say that only to rule out shenanigans at a national convention at the last minute. I fully expect that he will be our nominee. But my question is, as I saw that clip, both Chris and Tim were there, and they were throwing up approval at that sentiment. So I'd like to ask both of you, would you support President Trump if he is the nominee?
I'll never
Everybody
support
knows how I
that
feel
man
about
again.
that.
Never.
Absolutely not. Not a chance
Absolutely
in
not.
hell. Not a
Bought
single
and
chance.
paid. Bought
After
and
his
paid.
behavior,
That's what Bill
absolutely
Mitchell
not.
said back in the day,
So
right?
let me explain
Lincoln
why.
Club's not
If
going to
you were
have you,
asking that
Tim.
question, you should allow me to explain why in like 30 seconds.
They call him now, right?
I can explain why in 30 seconds. Listen, man, the game is chess, not checkers. We have a bona fide loser, and
it was a yes/no question. It wasn't to give you 30 seconds. You've had plenty of time. I think the host can move on to someone else.
No, I'm gonna go ahead and answer it, unless you want to kick me, host. I'll take 30 seconds to answer that real quick.
Take 20.
Listen, okay, cool. We have a bona fide loser. We have who has a cult around him. He is not answerable to the American people. He's not correctable by the American people because of his
So
cult.
a group of DeSantis supporters who say that they won't go for a nominee, that's not a cult.
Because I understand my civics. Because I understand my civics, I understand that we have.
This is the DeSantis push.
Because I understand my civics, I understand that we have three co-equal branches of government, and I am more than happy to support the legislative branch and the judicial branch. But I'm not going to go
So
ahead
then
and
you love
put.
Paul Rudd.
I'm not going to go ahead and
Everything you
put.
said
I'm not
negates
going to go ahead
everything
and
Tom
put the
tried
cult.
to do. You love all these
I'm not going
politicians.
to go ahead and
You
put the
love the
cult in
policy
charge of
defenders.
the executive branch so that we can spend the next 4 years talking about how the election was stolen. He's going to lose
Well, in my
anyway. But
opinion, a group of DeSantis supporters sitting around talking about how they'd rather not have a nominee at all if the nominee is President Trump. That's kind of indicative of cult behavior to me.
And they're
I'll say,
fascists. They're Nazis.
Hey,
We're
let
not
me
going
say,
to say.
discernment.
I'm not going to
Because-
support it.
host privilege here. I have to go here soon. As a DeSantis supporter, I will tell you that if President Trump is the nominee, I will vote for him. But you notice the question that they gave to the nominees, to the candidates up there, wasn't simply that. It was, if he's convicted and he's the nominee, will you support him? And I think that was the hesitation. It is a valid concern. I don't think we can just brush it away to say that if he is convicted, he can still be the nominee. And I will put to this just my insight, and I'll mute people here a second. My thought is, the people that were debating and the leaked documents that we've seen from both the DeSantis camp and other camps as well have shown that these are people running with the notion that he is not going to be the nominee for whatever purposes whatsoever. Again, don't confuse a constitutionally mandated election with party politics nominations. Those are two very different things, and I'll unmute for comment here.
Khaleesi, have you got the next clip you want to play?
Yeah, I have. I'll play it.
If Trump's the nominee, we are absolutely screwed. There's not a chance that he is going to win, and we're just going to have to deal with 4 years of Biden or whatever, and then hopefully get it right in 2028. But I mean, we
Chris,
don't have a
you're the
mulligan.
deluded
We don't
guy
have
who
time
thinks
to-
Biden's
this
going to
is a
last 40
layup.
years. Listen.
This is a layup.
No one's taking you seriously. No one's taking you seriously.
Chris,
Okay.
you need to please stop jumping in, bro. Let us get some structure in this. Let Khaleesi play the clip, and then you can make the same comment again. Please, go ahead.
Yeah, you can tell us how Biden's going to last 40 years. Okay, here you go.
Probably. It's interesting though, because you spent a lot of your career in television. Yeah. You were a top show in television on NBC. But you don't feel the need now running for president to do television, obviously. Do you think television is declining?
Long ago. I will say this, it could come back, but they just don't have a lot of credibility, Tucker. You know that perhaps better than anybody. I think it was a terrible move getting rid of you. You were number one on television, and all of a sudden we're doing this interview, but we'll get bigger ratings using this crazy forum that you're using than probably the debate or competition.
It's interesting though, because you spent a lot of.
There we go.
So again, the clips we're playing is up on the nest, so you can check them out. In terms of this specific one, Ryan, I know again, like
Ryan's on listeners, I think, Suleiman. You have to bring him back up, please.
that's how Ryan. I'm talking about the other Ryan. I'll bring the other one up once Justin leaves. But Ryan, the question to you is, irrespective, I know like the DeSantis fans are gonna say like this debate was the most watched thing in history, and then the Trump fans are gonna say that look, this was the biggest watched Twitter stream ever, or most watched on any platform ever. So I get the argument because each person's got their own side, but specifically his point about people not trusting terrestrial TV, people looking for alternative media, looking for alternative sources. That is something that I think both sides can agree on. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, for me, when you look at, the demographics of social media right now, you have people like Fauci and Kai and all these other, streamers getting kick deals for $150, $200 million. Cable TV is done. People are looking at social media more than they are on their TV. I don't even have cable. I've never had cable since I moved out of my parents' house like 10, 15 years ago. Right. So, it's one of those things now where it's like you can get this stuff wherever you want it, on your phone, your iPad, your laptop. So it's not really a big deal for me. I think a lot of the younger generation respect the fact that people are coming to social media. I think the Tucker interview was historical because we've never seen this before, right? You have a bunch of candidates on stage. I think Vivek was a star tonight. I really do. And, he's always been someone who I was, sort of looked at as someone who was different from the rest, even when he was before running for president. So I think that this is a perfect opportunity. I think that this is I would even say grand opportunity for candidates to learn from this, because it's going beyond cable. People want to see the candidate in raw footage. They want to learn somebody who isn't just on a debate stage arguing left and right. At the end of the day, this debate really, for me, Vivek seemed like a star. He got so much airtime. But at the end of the day, Trump lived rent free in their heads for almost the entire hour of the first debate. That's how I looked at this. And I'm not even, I founded Students for Trump. I have a bias, but I tried to be unbiased. I was like looking at this like, okay, they're not giving DeSantis as much time. They're not giving, Chris Christie for what he's worth. Everything was an attack on Vivek for the first hour and a response. And that's just how I look at it. Personally,
I never thought you'd say that, Ryan. I'm absolutely shocked that Team Trump is saying that Trump was the real winner, but Vivek was the one that really shined. Trump could have done Tucker another day. And yeah, it is cool that Tucker's on Twitter. I mean, it is awesome that he's on this new medium. But, he skipped the debate. I mean, this is a historical thing, and it's where Trump was the best. I mean, Trump was just great when he would get up there and debate in 2016. But now that he's got a record, he don't really want to talk about it. He could have done the Tucker thing another day. I hope DeSantis does the Tucker thing. But let's just face it, Trump is too afraid. And maybe it's the right move, because all he's looking at is the polls. That's all he seems to care about these days. Just the polls. They're obsessed with the polls.
Chris, let me tell you, it's not any of that. And Gorka could probably say the same thing. It has nothing to do with that. Let them eat themselves.
Right.
It is
Ryan, I don't know what debate
Ryan, they ate
themselves. They did not spend that
it's
much.
not a bad strategy.
Ryan, they didn't spend that much time on Trump. Like, honestly, let's be real.
really
I don't even know if you watched the
No, they
debate.
did. They lived rent free in his head, whether you believe it or not.
Listen,
They
you had
talked
that
about
line
Trump
written this
half
morning.
of the
Let's
debate.
be real. Let's be real. You had that line written this morning. They spent
Ryan,
I don't
segment-
write any lines, believe it or not. But
all
I
right,
don't know who
Ryan,
you are. I've never heard of you before.
Ryan.
I don't write lines.
Let's level real quick. They spent one segment on Trump and then they kept it moving. And trust me, I was paying attention to that because I was really concerned that they were going to spend a lot of time on Trump. They spent almost no time on Trump. I'm very impressed by the fact that they did what they needed to do with Trump and they kept it moving. Honestly, man, they spent more time on Pence than they did on Trump. Let's be real.
Everything was the past administration, though. Everything was Pence was the
they're not supposed to
administration
talk
before,
about the past
so it doesn't even matter.
administration. What world are you living in where you run for president and you can't talk about the past
So
administration?
they did
the
talk
last
about
time
it. You said it was
a
only one
Republican
segment.
was in the
Pence
White House.
was the
Oh yeah,
part of
I
the
thought they didn't talk
administration.
about it.
So what are you talking about?
So listen, they
He
didn't
agrees with
mention
you,
Trump.
Ryan. Ignore him. He
They
doesn't
didn't
even know
mention
what he's
Trump by
saying.
name
He just
except for
agreed
that
with you.
one segment. So what are you talking about?
I
So all
listen
right, so
to
your
the
so your
same thing
idea
you
They're
here
do.
not
is that
spending their best.
your
Ryan. This is
idea
what
here is
another
that
PAC
Trump
needs to hire some new people because you're not sending the
I'm
best.
not
your
going to
idea
interrupt
here is that
anymore. I'll
Trump
let you speak. Everybody's
your idea
talking.
here is that Trump needs to skip the debate because he's cowardly, and then he should also not his administration should not be held to account for the things that were done or not done during his administration. That's what you're saying, right? That's living rent free.
Exactly. No,
correct?
no. You're putting words in my mouth, which is typical of people who don't
Okay, well,
understand
break it down
things.
for me then, Ryan. Break it down for me then.
We don't have
I'll
enough
break
time
it
for you to
down for you in
understand.
the fact that this was an unprecedented thing that happened in our country. You have a virus that comes out of nowhere, which came from Wuhan, China, right? Which I believe fully that was done because China was not in Trump's best eyesight, right? Like he
So
put
we
an
hire
aim on
presidents
them.
just for the
He put an
precedented
aim on
things, not the
China,
unprecedented
and
things.
China didn't like Trump. And so they did something to make sure he wouldn't get elected again. I don't get why people don't get this. I don't understand why you can't look at the political timeline of how embargoes and trade tariffs and all this stuff were put on China. And then all of a sudden, out of China, you have a Wuhan virus where bats are coming. Right? Everybody's saying bats, right? People are doing things with bats or eating bats, whatever. You get the COVID virus, right? And then all of a sudden, you see this virus. And then you see the Democrats who do mail-in ballot. I don't know why anybody doesn't understand this shit. I really,
Well, Ryan,
we
hire
do not
presidents.
understand
We hire
why
presidents.
you don't look at precedent.
Ryan,
Why
we
you
hire
don't look at
presidents
any of this.
for the unprecedented moments. There's only one person that gets to sit behind a Resolute desk at a time. So when you're saying, well, this was unprecedented, I'm like, well, that's the job, dude. That's the job.
Well,
That's
did
what we
Obama
hired
do
him
anything
for.
about it? Did he supply any sort of resource? No, we had no resources for this. The swine flu was a joke.
So helpless
compared
Trump.
to
You have
this.
to understand.
It's a
You're
joke.
You're
talking
going
to
with the
a
helpless Trump
he doesn't
argument.
remember that a number of Republicans went along with the hoax Ukraine impeachment, where the DOJ and FBI held exculpatory evidence proving Joe Biden's corruption in Ukraine. He doesn't. To him, that's not there. He forgets
Ron DeSantis.
when a lot of people on the right went along with this crap. So he thinks everything's on Trump. Trump didn't have the cachet at that moment after he just beat impeachment that his own party tried to betray him. Yeah,
Right.
he went after them in the primary.
you don't have the
You're
cachet.
welcome.
4 years.
We
You're
agree
welcome.
on something.
He
We
primaried
agree
them.
on.
Sorry, guys, there's too many people talking at the same time. Felicia, do you want to play the next clip, and then we'll just to keep some structure into the conversation.
Yeah,
you know who
sure.
didn't go along with it, Prodigal? Ron DeSantis didn't go along
Actually,
with
he shut down.
it.
He shut down parts again in June. I mean, that's
No,
proof.
I'm saying
Stop
he stood up
lying.
for Trump.
He
I'm
bet
saying
when
Ron
Trump
DeSantis
never wanted to
stood up for
close.
Trump.
Look up Politico. Look up the New York Times. DeSantis wanted to quarantine New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. That's
Listen,
your guy
that's
who
not
fed
what
into
I'm
the
talking
early
about.
fear.
I'm telling
I'm
you.
glad he turned it around, but you can't lie to people. It's all documented. Just stop.
Listen, I was
why,
down here
why
the
did Trump
entire
shut down
time
Florida when
watching Ron
DeSantis opened
DeSantis
up?
take
He
on these
never had the
whistleblower
power to shut the
take
country
on
down
Fauci.
or
I
open
mean,
it up.
Ron
He never
DeSantis
had the
is
power.
famous because of standing up to Fauci. Donald
Okay,
Trump
guys, let me
never
play
had
this
to
clip,
shut the
please.
country down. He
What
never
are you
had
It's
to
such a lie. This stupid
let
fucking
me
lie.
play.
Let him keep going because it's not
Right.
working.
I
It's
don't
just
want
that
Yeah,
everybody
embrace.
to.
Prodigal, 1 second. Let me just play this clip. Let me play this clip quickly.
You're supposed to be getting us out of that horrible, horrible war that we're very much involved in with Russia and Ukraine. You could do that. You could do that very easily. I believe you could do that I don't believe he could do it because he's just incompetent. But that's a war that should end immediately, not because of one side or the other, because hundreds of thousands of people are being killed. Can you imagine you're in an apartment house and rockets are going into that building and blowing it up and knocking it down? And who can, why should anybody, human beings, is a human, whether they're Russian or Ukrainian or whatever they are, it's got to be stopped. And it can be stopped very easily. It would have never started. If I were president, it would have never started.
That's the end.
He sounds
But
like
he couldn't stop the riots.
1 second, Chris, before you jump in. I will come to you, though. I'll actually come to you first, Chris, because I know you're not eager. So you asked the question, Chris, you asked the question why people are bothered. So this is an example of why people who are not American are bothered, because Ukraine and Russia is a foreign policy. Oh, Tim finds it funny that foreign policy, people from foreign countries might be bothered about foreign policy. But anyway.
Yeah, he's too big of a pussy to go over there and fight for anything
Tim's
he
not very
believes
smart,
in.
that's why. But anyway, coming back to the point, when it comes to foreign policy, then people who are foreign are concerned with it. And so what it shows is that when you listen to this, Trump and Vivek are demonstrating why their foreign policy would ensure that the war ended, lives were saved, all of us would live a better life, because we're struggling in the United Kingdom as well due to this Ukraine-Russia war. Whereas DeSantis has changed his view more times than you can say anything. I think he changed his view 2 or 3 times in a week last time. So when you got somebody who are warmongers and you got people who aren't warmongers, like what do you get? I mean, and when I look at people in the right, they generally, I know it's not like that in the past, but now people in the right, generally speaking, are more inclined to be anti-war right now. They want it to be America first. They want to be anti-war, and that benefits us in the UK because, again, we don't want the war. We're struggling. Poor people are struggling in the UK as well. Poor people are struggling in the United States. So, Chris, Tim finds people struggling funny, but what's your thoughts on this?
Well, isn't that amazing that happened, that it's now Republicans that are the anti-war party? And if you see up in the Jumbotron, I put up there that Trump says if he doesn't make this magical thing happen and his Truth Social post demands aren't met and Putin and Zelensky don't get together and sing Kumbaya within like the first day of his presidency, he's going to send more weapons and more money to Ukraine. We have got to stop funding.
Yeah, it's called a carrot and stick,
Ukraine.
right?
So he said this, and Ron DeSantis says,
real question. Chris,
we didn't have these problems until Biden took over, by the way.
No, those problems were there. They were there.
Trump set it all in motion.
Guys. Let me ask Chris a question. Chris, real question. Like, I get, again, what the thing is, but real question. Did he say that? Because I've not seen the whole clip.
Did he say that
It's
he's
up
going
there
to?
in the jumbotron,
No,
and
I've
Trump
seen it.
makes
Chris, let me ask
empty
you a question,
promises.
Chris.
Well, can I answer?
Well, how can you answer when I'm not even asking the question? Right. So, Chris, the question to you is: Did he Did he answer that question in the context of generally he's going to send more weapons to Ukraine, he's going to blast Russia out, or was it in the context of if Russia do not be amiable to some kind of resolution, then he will send more weapons? Like, what was the context? I've not seen the video.
The context was that Donald Trump is going to get all this solved in 24 hours. But if that doesn't happen, then he's going to make sure to send more arms and more money to Ukraine. Sorry, I might have believed in him 4 years ago or 8 years ago, but no, he lied about going after Hillary Clinton. He makes empty promises. Ron DeSantis, on the other hand, says the blank check policy to Ukraine is going to stop when he becomes president. He's going to make Europe, which maybe this is why you guys don't like DeSantis as much, but he said he's going to make Europe pay their fair share and the NATO countries pay their fair share because, and this, by the way, is a Trump policy. This was one of the policies that I majorly agreed with Trump on. But right now, the U.S. is funding this whole thing that's going on in Ukraine, and it's actually being used as a money laundering operation for the Bidens. So Ron DeSantis, I believe, is the one who will stop this and will bring this to an end and make Europe pay their fair share. And Donald Trump, I don't know what the hell the guy's going to do. He'll say
No, you're right, Chris, you're right. Like,
Here comes the
Europe,
excuses,
Europe,
Chris. Here they come.
Yeah,
Go
here's
ahead.
the excuse. I'll give you one, Tim, because I know you said you found it funny when people are struggling. But yeah, Europe don't want
That's not what I said.
But you were laughing when I said it. So Europe, it's the opposite, Chris. Like myself and many others. I'm not saying this is the whole of Europe, but myself, we don't want the war. People are struggling. People are dying. People, and we don't want that. So it's not that we don't want to pay for it. I'm saying there shouldn't be a Ukraine-Russia war in the first place. So that's where we probably disagree with DeSantis.
No,
but
Suleiman, I agree with you on that 100%, Suleiman, 100%.
What wars did Trump end while he was in office? I'm
anyway,
curious.
let me go
Anybody
to.
know?
Well, it didn't start.
Nobody knows.
So that's something. That's the first
No,
time.
it actually takes a little bit of skill to end a war.
That's the first time I've ever seen that. And as far as
He
DeSantis
ended the
is
war in
concerned,
Afghanistan.
for
He
those
pulled
people
troops
that
out
are
of
lauding
Syria.
that,
His own
I just want
generals
to say
lied to
something.
him.
No,
He
hold on
didn't
one second,
start
guys.
new
One second.
wars. Biden screwed up.
I've been listening for a while, and you're all lauding up DeSantis. Let me say something, right? DeSantis was the guy that stood in torture chambers in Guantanamo and advocated and watched people get tortured. The fact that you're sitting here propagating that he's going to have some sort of just and fair foreign policy, you're deluded.
Right? This is MSNBC now.
He's
We're
an
gonna do
establishment
the
show.
right
No,
now.
He had
no,
service in
no,
Guantanamo Bay. That's on the record.
If you think, Tim, sorry, 1 second, Doc. If you think, Tim, this is propaganda, I suggest you educate yourself and go and have a look at official court documents. No, I'm not here to answer your questions. I'm here to tell you what I think.
You're arguing
Go
on
and
behalf
Google it.
of.
Have a look. If you don't know this and you're propagating for DeSantis, then I suggest you go and educate yourself.
No, you should go ahead and educate yourself.
Because he has done that, and this is in official court documents. Governments have had to pay out compensation, and you know the man who was overseeing it was DeSantis. DeSantis is an
DeSantis
establishment
oversaw
shill,
torture, is what
and
you're
we will
saying.
have more fraud when he
No,
comes
he couldn't
in
have
than
done it.
anybody
He
else.
was a junior officer. He answered
Junior
this question.
officer
He was a junior
oversaw
officer.
torture.
He was an attorney for JAG. He was an attorney for JAG.
They have
All
to
right,
go to these
guys, let me
conspiracy
just
theories.
1 second. Everyone keeps screaming out. Let me go to Chief, and Chief's sending me waves as well. Go ahead, Chief.
Well, I'll make a couple of points about DeSantis. He did say in a town hall about a week or so ago that he's going to go into third world countries that have become hotbeds of anti-Semitism as a little information. But a little more in detail is about this entire thing.
Chief, I missed that. I didn't get your point. You're going to go to third world countries and do what?
DeSantis said at town hall, we're going to go into these third world countries that have become hotbeds of anti-Semitism. He's going to go into a lot of these areas that he wants to based on his policies. I can put the clip.
What?
I'll put it up
He
right
didn't
here.
say that. What are you talking about?
Where did he say that?
My goodness, these
One
conspiracy
thing
theories.
I
They're
didn't
just
like
making it up
during
right
the
now.
debate was that how he said he was deployed with these Green Berets and all this stuff. He was a lawyer. He's an attorney. He wasn't. So I mean,
he served his country. I mean, the guy. I'm proud of him for serving his country.
I am. I'm proud of him, but I feel like it's misrepresentation to say that you You deployed with all these other individuals when you really didn't deploy
No, he
with
said
them. You were sitting
alongside.
in
Yes,
a
he
nice
did.
small
alongside.
Yes, he did. He was attached. He was attached to
he
SEAL
was
Team
banging in the
2.
doors.
He
Yeah,
damn well was
he
deployed.
it's a
hold on.
Guys. I told you these are the hardest debates to do, and it's like 6 a.m. here. But anyway, let's go. Let me ask. And we're going to wrap it up soon. So let me just.
He was a
CNN
PP checker. He
so
watched your analysis test to
please,
detect
Doc,
this.
Doc, let me ask a question. So, Doc, to you, let me ask you this question, because everyone's going to scream once you scream. So listen, CNN. Whoa. Well, see, so CNN just sent. I just seen the news. It just flashed in front of me, and it said it was Vivek against everybody, and basically Trump won or something like that. Oh no, sorry. Basically, no, it wasn't. It was Vivek against everybody, and DeSantis just did not stand out. I know you're going to agree with that, but my question to you is, what does it say that someone like CNN is saying that, Doc?
Well, I think that's reflective of the fact that CNN changed ownership beginning of last year, and been moving slowly, steadily to the right, or actually to the center. And they've got a long way to go. But I think the first sign of that I saw that I really trusted that there was a change that was the one-on-one that they did with Trump early on. And they obviously had that evil woman, nasty woman, try to go after him. But it was a ratings boom for them, and they're in it to make money. So I think CNN is just trying to be fairer. Not that they're
So it
fair,
had
but
nothing to do with the
Y'all
Trump
really are
team
listless
meeting with
vessels,
Dana
right?
Bash
Y'all
and
just
CNN
moved
at
from
a
CNN
steakhouse
sucks to
before
CNN
the
is great.
debate and going over talking points. It had nothing to do with that, Doc.
I mean, y'all moved from CNN
Dana Bash
sucks to CNN is
CNN.
great and
Fuck?
CNN is right wing. That's what a listless vessel is, man. You have no anchor whatsoever.
So,
You
wait,
literally will move with the wind based on who's
You're
being
gonna get
nice to
supporters
your
like this.
guy in the
Keep it up.
moment.
Keep it up.
How
You're doing great.
ridiculous are you?
wait, can I well, the point though, again, I put the
Yeah,
receipt up.
Chief, where is the evidence for what you said? Because
I put
obviously,
Jumbotron. It's in a Jumbotron.
oh,
So
I mean,
I have a quote
it's
there.
embarrassing. DeSantis is making the same mistakes as Romney and Hillary Clinton, and
Well,
his surrogates are doing it here.
wow,
In
Chief,
self-debate.
Chief,
It
what you
didn't serve
said is
Romney
true.
well. It didn't serve Clinton well. But you guys are so smart. You're making rookie mistakes.
Wait, can I
Are your feelings hurt, prodigal?
So let me go to
Not at all.
guys. So I want to go to Chief because he was midway, and then Tim and Chris jumped in and said he was lying. He's now posted the evidence on the Nest for what he said, and it did say that. So yeah, I mean, it's based on what he posted. It looks like DeSantis is willing to go into foreign wars in third world countries based on anti-Semitism. So get ready for more wars according to this. But Chief, continue with what you were saying.
Yeah, and this whole thing about the debate, it's very funny hearing these DeSantis people talking about we need Trump, and they're entitled to Trump and all that. Would I want to see Trump in the debate and see him smack people around? Sure, I'd love to see that, but he's at 60%, 50% of polls. He's going to spend his Wednesday night with 5% people in the polls, attacking him the entire time. It's really, quite honestly, it's a bit entitled for the way.
What race is he at 60% in?
Because
You're talking about entitled. Trump's entitled.
But Chief, what race is he at 60% in?
I'm being interrupted again by
people. No, answer the question. What race is he at 60% in?
Well, let me land my plane because I've been quiet listening to you guys talk.
Why are you scared to answer the question? What race is he at?
Why are you being such a racist,
Why do you
Tim?
think
Let
everybody's
the white guy
scared?
talk.
Nobody's scared. Relax.
Everybody's scared of Tim, apparently.
I mean, y'all running from my questions like some baby back.
Nobody's running.
So
You don't
Your questions. What do you mean by you are?
Tim. What Chief I think is citing is that in the YouGov poll, Trump is at 60% when he's direct, and DeSantis at 23%. In the other YouGov poll, in the Rasmussen report, Trump is at 49%. Vivek is ahead of DeSantis. So
Suma, I know you guys are from the UK, but we don't have national. Hold on, we don't have national primaries here. I don't know what race you're talking about. We have state by state primaries.
We didn't say it was a national primary. I'm just explaining to you what the polls are saying because you were trying to be facetious in your question, and just like you tried to. One second, I'm talking.
Answer me directly.
Tim,
Why don't you just answer me
directly? Let me finish my point. I'm going to answer because you're being quite rude.
You're citing national polls.
No, I didn't
we
say
don't have a national Republican primary.
Name one poll DeSantis is within 25. Since you're asking all the questions, name one within 25.
Iowa, goofball.
Let's see.
Tim,
he's down 20 points in Iowa. What are you talking about?
Tim,
Ryan,
I was
Iowa.
reciting a poll to you, and the problem with you is you try and basically your game is you
No,
try
you're
and
not
basically.
answering my question.
I'm gonna
He can't
answer your
answer
Where is
questions,
the
so
question.
he
I'm
asked
national
gonna answer your
you.
Republican
question.
primary?
What
Tell
it
me
is.
what.
Mute
One
him.
second. One second. I'm answering the question. Just like you got caught lying when you were talking, when you questioned Chief, and then he's put the evidence on the board. I literally
that's
told you. Yeah, you got exposed, guys. It was embarrassing.
No.
It got
The AF
embarrassed. Like Chief
Post.
embarrassed you so badly. It was
The
embarrassing,
AF
right?
Post.
But Chief embarrassed you really
What is
badly,
the
right?
AF Post? Is
that's
that
a
is that a
Chief
highly
white
I
embarrassed
watched
you
national?
really
that's a
badly.
highly
I'm
edited
talking
clip.
about the Rasmussen report.
That's a 4-second
I'm
clip
talking
out of
about
context that he
All right.
posted.
So
I get it. He's in all that America First
Me and you
Bitcoin
real
Trump's
quick.
thing, and
Me
polling
and
at
you
like
real quick.
44% in Iowa,
Su-
while DeSantis is about
Suleiman,
15%.
me and you real
So
quick. Me and
there
you
you
real
go.
quick. Since you're
right, Ryan. Go ahead, Ryan.
since you're citing Rasmussen polls,
No, I
Suleiman,
mean,
me and you real
I'm not
quick.
citing Rasmussen. I'm citing the Des Moines Register, which is citing many polls where they say Trump is at about 45%, DeSantis is 19%. So, I mean,
that
all
Des
the
Moines
logic
Register
here is
poll
thrown out the
is
door.
Trump scared.
So hold
Well,
on.
he's not
Let
within
me
25%.
respond
Can you
to
actually
that,
name
Ryan.
one where
Let me
he's in
respond
within
to that, Ryan.
25%?
Go
Ryan,
Google
that's
it yourself. Everybody needs to
Ryan.
Google things. I can
really
send
is.
you
Well,
Ryan,
I
let me
know the
respond to
answer.
that.
I'm just looking at.
Right, listen, guys. Oh
That's
my
a far
God.
cry from the
Right.
60% that my man said that he was at, that Trump was at.
Yeah, so the point I was trying to make for like the time, they're after Trump sound bites. They're after like little clips of them owning Trump, and they're like, "Wow, we got Trump." But then
Yeah.
look at the polls and it's like 50% Trump. But it's just very
Yeah,
very.
yeah. Chief, it's just like basically Tim being a baby. Like you said 60%, and let's say you showed 48 or 49 or 50.
What are you
It's like,
talking
oh,
about?
you said 60%. Like, you
Historically,
need to grow up, Tim.
historically,
Like,
the
is this what
Iowa
the Taliban does?
caucuses.
Like 60%.
Historically,
So
if you would
if
listen for a
Chief said
second,
60%
UK.
and it ended up being
Historically, the Iowa
55% or
caucuses have
50,
been
it doesn't
decided
matter.
in the
Look,
last 2
basically,
weeks.
his main point is,
Historic.
bro, you need to stop interrupting. Like the rudest guy I know on the space. What Chief's point is, and that's why we can't even have a conversation because you just interrupt every single person who talks. You need
No. I've been interrupted about a million times. I get talked over.
Stop. You can't even talk on this space without this guy. Like he doesn't shut up. What my point is what in terms of when you're being rude and being facetious and pedantic, his point isn't exactly 60%. His point is that Trump is winning in by significant numbers. Now you've been a baby and saying 60% rather than 58%, rather than 49%. It's irrelevant. He is saying based on the polls, they're destroying. That's the whole point. You don't need to be facetious on small little issues. Now, guys, this space has been exhausting because like every few seconds, certain people were interrupting and it was hard to talk about anything. We were actually going to go through a number of clips of Trump's interview with Tucker Carlson.
There's a big difference between being 60% and.
What is this guy on?
Stop being such a scared.
just say
Stop being such a scared little woman.
Let me say
Suleiman,
one thing.
and let me respond,
Listen,
man. Like just
Tim,
just
come
relax.
on.
Just
Right,
kick him off.
I don't know.
Tim, what are you on about? Anyone could do what you're doing. Literally, all it is just talking and not.
No.
That just sounds like a dog.
So listen.
Like, oh no, I'll carry on talking. Not let the other person talking. That means I'm winning the debate. Look, I'm talking while you're talking. That means I'm winning the debate. Oh my God, look.
Don't be a baby.
You can't even finish because I'm not finishing. I'm not finishing. You're not finishing.
I get.
So that means
I
I'm
get
winning the
that you
debate.
guys.
It don't work like that.
Tim really
I'll carry on
upsetting
talking
him.
like you're talking.
Solomon,
I really am upsetting him.
Tim.
Right. Anyway,
Ryan,
what were you gonna say?
I got
I
Suleiman
was
acting
just
out
going
of
to say
character,
this.
man.
We've done many of these spaces before. We all know how to conduct ourselves. All right.
Exactly.
So let's just. Everybody who's here, Tim might not have been here before. I don't know, but we all know how to conduct ourselves. Let's do it in a peaceful way. Let's do it in a conductful way. All right, guys?
So, Ryan, with
here
that in
together.
mind, can I respond to you real quick, Ryan? Do you mind?
Go ahead, Tim.
Would you
go ahead?
We're about to wrap up, and he wanted us to wrap up, right? Okay, so listen, guys.
Yeah.
Ryan, I want to wrap up.
Tim Cool broke you guys.
Chris, I thought you had to leave like an hour ago. Did the debate go that bad?
Look up in the Jumbotron. For this poll to be true, you have to believe Trump is now +8 with women, which he lost by 11 points. You have to believe Trump is +15 with Gen Z, which he lost by 20 points. And Biden is at 12 plus with independents. These polls are hilarious. And when do we do an election?
Why don't you look at the donors? Trump has 8 times the donors as DeSantis. Is that made up?
We'll see, guys. We'll see, guys. I gotta go. We'll see you in Iowa. Okay? All right.
From big donors, why does he only have about 50, 60,000? Trump is approaching 500,000.
Have fun watching all your little
Are
clips.
those half a billion? Those 8 times donors he has? Is that made up too? Where are all the donors?
Oh my God.
Hey guys, you just cut live and you expect people to believe it, but they don't believe it. It's fact.
All right. Well, I believe that as much as I believe these polls. Yeah, you guys have a great night. Okay, thanks for hosting, Suleiman. Have a great night, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Yeah, just I want to wrap up now anyway, but that guy wouldn't let me wrap up. So just when I'm about to wrap up, Ryan, like a real question, and is this: if one didn't know the names of the people on the podium, I mean, and you saw what happened on the podium, like when it came to Ron DeSantis, he just did not stand out. And not only did he stand out, you wouldn't even put him in the top 3 or top 5, in my opinion. Like Vivek shone really well. There's a number of people who shone really well. I'm not just saying because Vivek's thingy, but like I disagree with Vivek on a number of issues. I even asked him some very tough questions when he came on this space here. So I'm not like some kind of like Vivek stan, but he did really well. So what's your thoughts on that, Ryan?
No, I mean, I agree with you. I don't agree a lot. There's a lot of questions with Vivek. I think there's a lot of indiscrepancies too. And I think that has to be sorted out. Not the time now, right? But I think Vivek stood out among all of the candidates, to be honest with you. I think they were all attacking him. I made a tweet on this. I put it out probably about an hour ago. And I said, everyone was attacking Vivek and Vivek was defending himself. DeSantis barely got any airtime. You had, Nikki Haley. She's always there. AIDS Hutchinson, I call him that. He's there, right? It's like you have like Chris Christie, who can take a hoagie down the throat with no problem with a cannoli. You always have these certain people who show up every presidential election because they want to collect data. They want money. That's it. You have a certain amount of candidates on the stage who don't even know. They know they're not going to win, but they're there to get your money. They're there to run their donors in a circle because they want to make money. That's it. And that's this game. It's sad. And I want all the people in this space to know that. I really do, because I understand this system now that I've been through it. I've seen it. There are so many candidates who just go out there, raise money. They don't mean shit, right? Excuse my language. They don't mean shit. And that's what we're seeing right now. And Vivek was the most outstanding candidate on that stage. And if I were with President Trump right now, I would tell him, I would say, let's look into Vivek and let's consider him to be either cabinet or a vice president. That's how I look at that. I'm not there all the time, but that's how I look at that. To be honest with you.
Go ahead, Corsi.
Yeah, so I'm just getting confused. This was like the point where the DeSantis people screamed for like 20 minutes and I didn't have to
Yeah, bro, they both left. They were talking over each other at a certain point.
Confused, man.
Yeah, they were arguing with each other. I don't even think they realized it.
But the funny
But
thing,
let me go to. I'm about to wrap up. So Tom, you jumped on the stage. What's your thoughts about today? You had basically the debate, the GOP debate, and then you had Trump's interview with Carlson. There's a lot of interesting points from there. Some really good interview points. What's your thoughts, Tom?
Yeah, I think Vivek sounds like he did pretty well over there, holding his own. Ron DeSantis didn't necessarily shoot himself in the foot, but didn't do himself any favors. Long story short, today is the first day of the end of this campaign for anyone whose name isn't Donald Trump. That's the long and the short here. Trump totally set himself apart from everyone today by doing what he did with Tucker Carlson. It was brilliant. It was genius. It was the best move he could possibly make at this point. Any consultant, any campaign manager that would be working for him, if it was me, anyone with their head screwed on straight would tell him, listen, this is what you have to do. You don't debate. Don't show up to debate. And likewise, if you were working for DeSantis or Vivek, you would give them the advice that they probably got, and they did the best that they could, but it's not going to matter. None of that's going to matter. Donald Trump's going to ride this thing out. The same thing with Ken Paxton. That Karl Rove and George P. Bush, they tried for like hell to get rid of Ken Paxton. Ken Paxton won 66% of his primary, won his general election, no problem. Donald Trump is going to blow the primary out of the water. And if you look at the polling lately, between Trump and Biden, it's a lot closer than it's ever been. And so this is not 2020. People really need to pay attention right now. And we got to go out and get more Republicans registered. What Scott Pressler does is extremely important. I recommend everybody keep the momentum up. This is a very positive day for everybody that's a Republican, I believe. And I believe we're one step closer to building the party up to a point where we need to be, to where we can secure this election from Donald Trump. It's going to be a real fight. This isn't going to be a gimme for the Democrats at all. This is going to be a great contest, and we'll see if Joe Biden even makes it all the way. We'll see. But thank you for having me up here. I really appreciate it. And I think that in the next week or so, we'll see better numbers for Trump. Trump will go up in the polls. The rest of these guys will start to falter. They're going to lose money. People are going to have to drop out. They're going to run out of gas. Lots of big things coming in the upcoming weeks. And thanks again for having me. Appreciate it.
I just wanted to say one thing, and Tom, I thank you so much for that. I just want to say one thing, because he brought up Ken Paxton, and this has been a fight that I've been involved in for a minute. I encourage you, look at my Twitter, follow me, whatever, but I just retweeted a tweet about Ken Paxton and what they're doing to him right now in Texas. Dade Phelan, a drunk, washed out politician, Bush Rhino, is working. He's already impeached him. His trial is set for the 28th for Ken Paxton. They basically suspended him of all of his abilities. I encourage you to look out for that, what's going on the 28th in Texas, because that is very major, because the Democrats have taken advantage of it, and now they're gutting voter laws and everything else when it comes to voter protections in Texas. So look out for Ken Paxton. Keep that on your radar. That's all I had to say. Thank you, guys.
The Bush political machine is behind that attack on Ken Paxton. Whether it's earned or not, the Bushes are pushing it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
Bush Republicans, the establishment Republicans, 100%. That's what we're dealing with. Keep a look out on that, guys, because we need to protect Ken, because he has been a stalwart for America First policies.
Yes, definitely, and we'll know within the first few weeks of September the trial is going to begin. It won't take too long, and if you really want to know what's going on, go follow Texas Scorecard. There's a big video that came out. Ryan, I don't know if you saw that.
Amen.
Yeah, and
I
send
did.
that
I
out.
did.
Everybody needs to see that so they can understand about Dade Phelan and how big of a slime ball he is. I wouldn't bother you with this stuff normally, but this is some of the dirtiest stuff in America that's going on. So thank you, Ryan, for preaching it and leading that fight.
Yes, sir.
Right, guys.
Yes, sir. We're going to do it.
Yeah, brilliant. And guys, appreciate you joining today for the marathon. We had the Prigozhin death, which we covered for a number of hours, and then we moved and shifted the debate and the Tucker Carlson Trump interview. It's been a mad, 12, 13, 14 hours where it's been. Appreciate your time, and we'll see you again. I think same time tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, because we've got the football show, Soccer for Americans, 5 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. UK. Ryan, last thoughts before we wrap up?
I will say this. I think the debate stage was crowded. It wasn't as crowded as 2016, but I will say this: President Trump proved himself in the 4 years. He fought the establishment. I look at Jimmy Carter, right? He wasn't a great president, but in his latter years, he went out and he built homes for people. He did what he could to provide, to make up for it, right? I look at President Trump in a different way. I look at this guy as an outsider who took on the system in ways that you could never see ever before. Ever in the history of this country. He took on something that people never even dared to take on, because that was the government. That was what existed before him, even, and he knew what he was taking on. He understood it, but he took it on in a way that we've never seen before. And now we are seeing an unprecedented government overreach to where they are targeting his attorneys. They are targeting attorney-client privilege. They are attacking people. Myself, I've received probably about 5 subpoenas. I've been investigated by the FBI for things in the Trump administration. I've been questioned by things by the FBI on the Trump administration. I've had to spend about $200,000 in legal fees. I'm only 27 years old, by the way. So this has been a roller coaster for me, but it's worth it. It is 100% worth it, because this country is worth saving, and we need to bring God back to this country. And when Reba McEntire sang that song, Bring This Country Back to God, it struck me in the heart. And I was only in college at the time when that song came out, but it struck me. And then you hear this song, Richmond, North of Richmond. I cry every time I hear that song because I experienced Washington, D.C. I saw the corruption in Washington, D.C. I saw the leverage people had in that city. I saw all of it. It's D.C. for ugly people. It's Hollywood for ugly people. And it's true. This is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a corrupt bureaucracy, and Donald Trump is the person that I fully believe. I do not commit myself to anybody unless I fully believe in what they do. You will never see me advertise some sweater or some MAGA shirt to make money. I will never do that. That is not who I am. But I will 100% defend somebody who stands for me, stands for what I believe in, and stands for this country. And I will never give that up. And that's why I'm in this fight. I'm not a grifter. I'm not any of that shit. I'm not a Bill Mitchell. I'm not any of that. I am somebody who wants this country to be better than it was when we left it. I want my kids to grow up in a country that is better than where my mom raised me. I didn't grow up in a rich family. Grew up in a middle-class family, built my way up. And so when I see President Trump and I see what he's done for this country, it resonates with me. It resonates with my family because we've been through it. We dealt with Obama. We dealt with the financial crisis, my mother not having a job. We dealt with all of that. And Trump made this country people in my family, Democrat, made this country better than it was before. And I'll leave it at that. He is the man for the job, and he has righteous indignation in his system to fight these fucks. Sorry for my language. Fight these fucks, because that is the only thing we can do. Fannie Willis, all of them. Retribution is coming. I'll leave it at that. God bless you guys.
Amen.
Appreciate you, Ryan. Thank you. I think that's a good point to end. So I appreciate you guys joining and listening to us. And then tomorrow we'll be here back for the football show.